Area 51. Imagine a vast, empty desert stretching as far as your eyes can see. The Nevada sun beats down, the wind kicking up dust in swirls, and somewhere out there, just beyond the horizon, is a place that most of the world only knows from movies, conspiracy theories, and late-night internet rabbit holes. That place is Area 51. And if you're picturing a secret government base with mysterious flying saucers, you're not far off, though the reality is even stranger. Now, close your eyes for a second and picture yourself driving down a lonely desert highway. The road is straight, flat, endless. Mountains loom in the distance, but they're hazy, almost unreal in the heat shimmer. Suddenly, the fences appear. Big, intimidating chain-link fences topped with barbed wire, signs scream warnings, no trespassing, photographs prohibited, use of deadly force authorized. And just like that, you realize you're staring at one of the most secretive places on Earth. You're not allowed in, not even a little peek. So why is Area 51 off limits? Officially, it's a top-secret testing ground for experimental aircraft and weapons. But that's just the government's polite way of saying, we don't want you here. Rumors have swirled for decades about UFOs, alien autopsies, and secret energy weapons. People claim to see strange lights in the sky, odd-shaped planes moving impossibly fast, and even sudden eerie silence in the desert like the world itself is holding its breath. Whether you believe those rumors or not, there's no denying one thing: the security is next level. The history of Area 51 is fascinating. It started back in the 1950s, during the Cold War, when the U.S. government needed a super-secret place to test spy planes like the U-2. Pilots flew high above enemy territory, collecting intelligence, and the government needed somewhere they could practice without anyone seeing. Over the decades, the place became bigger, more secretive, and wrapped in layers of mystery. And when the Roswell UFO crash happened in 1947, the rumors connecting aliens to Area 51 only skyrocketed. People love a good secret, especially one that might involve extraterrestrials. Now, imagine what would happen if a civilian tried to get inside. Well, it's not like sneaking past a hotel doorman. Security here is tight. You'd face surveillance cameras, motion sensors, armed guards, and a legal system ready to slap serious consequences on you. Some unlucky trespassers have been shot at with warning shots, arrested, and prosecuted for simply being curious. Basically, the desert is a look but don't touch zone, and the price of touching is too high to even joke about. Here's the weird part. Even though the base is incredibly secretive, people are obsessed with it. The small town of Rachel, Nevada, nearby, lives almost entirely off the mythology of Area 51. There are UFO-themed diners, gift shops, and motels where fans camp for a glimpse of the impossible. And every time someone swears they've seen a flying saucer hovering silently over the desert, the legend grows. It's like the area feeds off imagination itself. And here's a little mind-bending detail. Until 2013, the U.S. government didn't even officially admit Area 51 existed. For decades, it was a place that did not exist on maps, in documents, or even in conversations. Imagine working somewhere and knowing that the entire world pretends your office isn't real. That's Area 51. That's how hidden it really is. So next time you look at the desert, think about this. Somewhere out there, beyond fences and warnings, exists a place full of secrets. top secret aircraft, maybe aliens, and definitely stories you'll never get to see firsthand. You can look, wonder, and imagine, but you cannot enter. And somehow, that makes it even more fascinating. Would you dare to sneak a peek if you could? Or would you rather stay on the road, staring from a safe distance, letting the mystery linger? That's the power of Area 51, a forbidden place that will always spark our curiosity.
Pine Gap, Australia. Picture this, the middle of the Australian outback. Endless red dirt, sparse trees, and a sky so wide it almost feels like it's swallowing the horizon. You're hundreds of kilometers from the nearest major city, and yet somewhere out there is a place that literally controls parts of the world you'll never see. This is Pine Gap, and if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. Most people haven't, and that's exactly the point. Imagine driving along a dusty road with nothing around for miles. You start to see fences, tall, intimidating, with warning signs that make it crystal clear, authorized personnel only, no trespassing. You might think it's just some boring government installation, but here's the kicker. Pine Gap is one of the most secretive intelligence bases on Earth, and it's run jointly by the US and Australia. What happens inside is so classified that even locals barely know what goes on. So why is it forbidden? Well, Pine Gap is a satellite surveillance and intelligence hub. It literally watches almost every corner of the planet. Governments use it to track missiles, monitor communications, and spy on other nations. Think of it like the ultimate high-tech eye in the sky, but instead of looking at clouds and birds, it's watching things most of us would never even notice. The security is insane. You cannot just stroll in. Even getting near the fences could land you in jail or worse. Cameras, guards, motion detectors, it's all there, and the government is very serious about it. Here's something that will make you think twice. Pine Gap has been active since the early 1970s during the Cold War, when the US and Australia needed to monitor global activity. Back then, it was all about missiles and secret military programs. But over the decades, technology has skyrocketed. Now, the base can intercept satellite signals, track potential threats, and coordinate secret operations worldwide. And the crazy part, almost no one outside of the intelligence community knows what's happening inside. That's what makes it truly forbidden. Now, imagine standing in the outback under the blazing sun, looking at those fences and imagining the rooms behind them. High-tech consoles, screens glowing with satellite images, analysts watching global movements, all happening while you're just a few kilometers away, not allowed to step any closer. Can you feel the tension? It's like the Earth itself is keeping a secret from you. And of course, whenever you have a place that secret, myths start to swirl. Some say Pine Gap is involved in controlling drones, guiding nuclear weapons, or even monitoring alien signals. Whether that's true or not, the fact that people can't verify anything keeps the legend alive. The secrecy itself becomes part of the story, almost like it's daring us to imagine. If you try to get closer, there's no sneaking in unnoticed. The perimeter is heavily guarded and surveillance technology is off the charts. People who get too curious have been stopped immediately, and the law does not mess around. Trespassers could face fines, prison, or forced removal. Basically, if Pine Gap could speak, it would say, "Stay out, and maybe you make it home in one piece." Here's a little mind-bending detail. Pine Gap doesn't just monitor space.
It helps control global weapon systems. It's literally one of the nerve centers of modern intelligence. Most of us go through life never imagining a single facility could wield that much power. And yet, there it is, hidden in the outback, almost invisible, silently shaping things we'll never fully understand. So think about this for a second. Out in the harsh red desert, thousands of kilometers from civilization, lies a facility that keeps watch over the world, full of secrets you're never allowed to see. You can drive past the signs, imagine the impossible operations happening behind fences, and wonder what it's like inside. But you cannot enter. You're an outsider looking in, left to imagine the unimaginable. And maybe that's part of the fascination. The idea that somewhere beyond human reach exists a hub of secrets that literally shapes the world. Would you dare to imagine what it would feel like to work there? To see satellite feeds from around the globe? Or would you be too aware of the consequences, the warnings, and the unknown powers at play? Pine Gap exists as a reminder that some places on Earth are deliberately, fiercely off-limit. And in that restriction, the imagination thrives. It's forbidden, mysterious, and entirely captivating.
Mezhgorye, Russia. All right, imagine this. Deep in the southern Ural Mountains of Russia, hidden behind towering peaks and dense forests, lies a town that doesn't officially exist on most maps. A town that outsiders aren't allowed to enter. Welcome to Mezhgorye, a place shrouded in secrecy, rumors, and enough conspiracy theories to fill a dozen documentaries. You might not have heard of it, and that's exactly how the people running this place want it. Picture yourself driving through the rugged mountains. The road twists and turns, the forest is so thick it feels like the shadows themselves are watching you. And suddenly, you notice checkpoints. Not just one, but multiple armed gates blocking your path. Guards in uniforms with stern faces scan every inch. Cameras follow your car like hawks. Signs warn you in bold letters, "Entry forbidden. Violators will be prosecuted." And just like that, you realize you've stumbled upon one of the most secret towns in the world. So, what's going on in Mezhgorye that makes it so restricted? Officially, it's a closed town, which in Russia usually means military or strategic purposes. But whispers go further. Many believe it houses nuclear missile silos, some even claiming that the town is directly connected to Russia's strategic nuclear operations. People live there, sure, but their lives are tightly controlled, and outsiders are not allowed in under any circumstances. Imagine an entire town where your neighbors could be working on things that could literally change the course of global history, and you have no right to be there. The history of Mezhgorye adds another layer of mystery. It's believed the town was established during the Soviet era, somewhere in the mid-1970s, as a secure location for military operations. Over the decades, it grew quietly, with residential blocks, schools, shops, basically a normal town on the surface. But everything in Mezhgorye has a purpose. Every building, every street, every security checkpoint exists to shield the secrets beneath the mountains. Some maps don't even mark it. Some satellite images are blurred or restricted. It's almost like it's a town that time and the outside world forgot. Now, imagine what it would be like to live there. You have all the comforts of a small town, grocery stores, schools, parks, but your life is intertwined with secrecy.
Cameras everywhere, a strict set of rules, and the knowledge that you can't just leave whenever you want. Outsiders are curious, journalists are blocked, and the world knows almost nothing about daily life inside. That's the paradox of Mezhgorye. It's normal, yet entirely forbidden at the same time. And of course, secrecy breeds rumors. People claim there are underground tunnels connecting various secret facilities, some stretching for kilometers. Some say there's a hidden command center inside the mountains where high-ranking officials and military personnel monitor nuclear capabilities. Others whisper about black budget experiments or top-secret projects that never see the light of day. Whether any of it is true is impossible to verify because no outsider has ever been allowed a real look. If you tried to visit, it's not just a matter of breaking the law. The terrain itself is rugged and unforgiving. The checkpoints are armed and strict. Security patrols monitor every move. Anyone who attempts to sneak in risks serious consequences: arrest, interrogation, fines, and possibly being expelled under armed escort. In short, Mezhgorye is a place you simply cannot touch. And maybe that's why it's so fascinating. The fact that the world exists just outside its borders, yet is completely locked out. Here's a little mind-bending thought. While the rest of us live in open cities, checking emails, going to work, Mezhgorye operates in almost total isolation. The people inside have routines, lives, and communities, but everything is shaped by secrecy. The town exists for purposes the public can only imagine, and that tension between normal life and forbidden secrets gives the place an almost mythical aura. So, picture yourself standing on a mountain pass, looking down at a town that officially shouldn't exist. You know it's there. You've seen it from afar, but the gates are locked. The cameras are watching. The people inside live in a world you will never fully access. And somehow that mystery is magnetic. It pulls your imagination in, makes you wonder, and keeps you thinking long after you've left. That's Mezhgorye, a forbidden town hidden in plain sight, where secrets live inside the mountains, and curiosity is both dangerous and irresistible.
North Sentinel Island, India. Imagine a tropical paradise, lush green trees, golden sandy beaches, and turquoise waters stretching as far as the eye can see. Now, imagine being forbidden to set foot on that paradise, not because it's dangerous for humans in the usual way, but because the people living there want absolutely nothing to do with the outside world. Welcome to North Sentinel Island, one of the most mysterious and off-limits places on Earth. Picture yourself on a boat, gliding over calm ocean waters, and in the distance you see the island. It looks peaceful, almost like a postcard, but then you notice movement, dark figures peering from the forest, bows raised, arrows ready. The inhabitants are the Sentinelese, one of the last uncontacted tribes in the world. They've lived there for thousands of years, completely isolated, and they do not welcome outsiders, ever. The moment someone approaches the shore, they attack. And here's the thing, they're deadly accurate, fast, and fearless.
So why is it forbidden to go there? The Indian government has strictly banned any contact. Entering the island is illegal. The reasons are simple but critical. First, the Sentinelese have no immunity to modern diseases, which could wipe them out in hours. Second, the tribe wants to remain untouched by the outside world. And third, the island is extremely dangerous for outsiders. Any attempt to land could get you seriously injured or killed. Imagine a place where simply setting foot could be your last mistake. That's North Sentinel. Now, think about the history. Anthropologists and explorers have tried to study the Sentinelese for decades, but contact is nearly impossible. Helicopters and boats have been met with arrows. Some people tried to deliver gifts, hoping to win trust, but even that often failed. One of the most famous recent incidents was in 2018, when an outsider illegally tried to land on the island, and the results were fatal. That story made headlines worldwide, and it reminded us all, some places are forbidden for a reason, and nature plus human will can enforce that restriction ruthlessly. Imagine the Sentinelese themselves. They live in a world completely separate from ours. No phones, no internet, no cars, no government. Just fishing, hunting, and small villages hidden in the jungle. They have maintained their independence for centuries, surviving typhoons, diseases, and intrusions without losing their way of life. Theirs is a society untouched by modern civilization, and because of that, our curiosity is both irresistible and dangerous. We want to see them, study them, understand them, but they are perfectly capable of keeping us out. Here's a chilling thought. If you tried to go there, it's not just the tribe you'd have to worry about. The Indian Coast Guard patrols the surrounding waters constantly. Trespassers can be arrested, fined, or worse. So you'd be facing double protection, both human and natural, ensuring the island remains off limits. It's almost like the universe itself has drawn a giant "Do Not Enter" sign over this patch of paradise. And here's something mind-blowing. Anthropologists estimate that there are fewer than 100 people on the entire island. Yet these few individuals have successfully defended their land against hundreds of years of potential contact. No one can claim a foothold here. That's incredible resilience. Think about it. A handful of people, armed with basic bows and knowledge of their land, can literally keep the entire modern world out. Now, imagine yourself standing on a boat just a few hundred meters from the shore. You can see the jungle, the beach, and maybe even a figure darting between the trees. The sun glints off the water. You know it's beautiful, but you also know stepping closer could mean death. It's a strange mix of awe, respect, and fear. That's the power of North Sentinel Island. It's forbidden, dangerous, and utterly captivating. And the reason we'll never fully know what life is like there. So, would you dare to approach it, imagining the hidden lives of people untouched by the modern world? Or would you stay back, respecting the invisible barrier, knowing that some mysteries are meant to remain intact? North Sentinel Island reminds us that forbidden places aren't always about secrecy or government locks. They can be about survival, culture, and the ultimate right to remain unseen.
RAF Menwith Hill, UK. All right, imagine a quiet patch of the English countryside. Rolling green hills, quaint villages, and the kind of peaceful scenery that makes you think life couldn't get any calmer. Now, picture a massive, high-tech installation in the middle of that serenity, filled with giant white domes that look like snowballs on steroids. This is RAF Menwith Hill, one of the most secretive intelligence sites in the world, and it's tucked away in plain sight, but nobody is allowed inside. Picture yourself driving down a winding country road, birds chirping, cows grazing, and then suddenly you see fences taller than most houses, topped with barbed wire, and the infamous radomes, those massive spherical domes that house satellite antennas. Cameras track your every move. Signs warn unauthorized entry prohibited. Offenders will be prosecuted. You start to feel like you've stumbled into a place that's both part of our world and completely off limits to it at the same time. So, why is Menwith Hill forbidden? Well, this base is a key hub for signals intelligence, mainly run by the UK, but heavily used by the US government. The satellites, radomes, and antennas here intercept communications from all over the world. Phone calls, email, satellite transmissions, you name it. Think of it like the ultimate spy tool, quietly listening to what's happening across continents, without anyone outside even knowing what's being captured. That's why they don't want casual visitors snooping around. This is serious intelligence work. Now, imagine the history behind it. RAF Menwith Hill started during the Cold War, a time when the US and the UK were paranoid about Soviet communications. They needed a place to intercept enemy signals, analyze them, and share the intel. Over the decades, the site expanded massively. Today, it's considered one of the largest electronic monitoring stations in the world. And even though it's in the middle of peaceful Yorkshire, it's anything but calm on the inside. The people working there see and hear things that most of us wouldn't even imagine, keeping secrets that could impact governments, economies, and international relations. Now, picture yourself sneaking up to the base. You'd probably notice the giant satellite dishes pointing in all directions, radar domes that glow in the night, and armed guards patrolling continuously. It's not a place you could just wander into. Trespassers risk arrest, prosecution, and potentially being detained indefinitely. The security is serious, and the rules are enforced without compromise. Basically, Menwith Hill doesn't tolerate curiosity. Here's something fascinating. Because of its secrecy, Menwith Hill has been a magnet for conspiracy theories. Some claim it's involved in mass surveillance programs, tracking citizens worldwide, or even controlling satellite systems that can manipulate communications. Of course, most of these stories are speculative, but the fact that the public knows so little about the day-to-day operations makes the imagination run wild. And that's part of the allure. People are drawn to places they can't understand or touch.
Imagine standing outside the fences at night. The ray domes glow faintly under the moonlight. You can hear distant hums of technology, the soft thrum of air conditioning units inside massive buildings, and maybe even the whispers of secrets being collected from all over the planet. It's both awe-inspiring and unnerving. The base feels alive, like it's watching, as much as it's being watched. And all you can do is imagine the operations inside, knowing full well that entry is impossible. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Menwith Hill is part of a global network of signals intelligence stations that help allied countries monitor global events, track potential threats, and coordinate military operations. The data flowing through this place could literally shape world affairs, yet the average person will never see a single pixel of it. That's the essence of being forbidden. It's not about danger exactly. It's about access, secrecy, and control. So take a moment and picture yourself standing there in the cold Yorkshire air, staring at those enormous domes, imagining the intelligence flowing through them, and feeling that mix of curiosity and respect. RAF Menwith Hill is a reminder that some forbidden places aren't about physical danger. They're about knowledge, secrecy, and power. You can observe, speculate, and wonder, but stepping inside, that's a line you simply cannot cross. Would you dare to imagine what it's like to work there, to see the world through intercepted signals and top-secret data? Or would you be content to stay on the outside, letting the mystery and power of the place fuel your imagination? That's the draw of Menwith Hill. An ordinary countryside hiding extraordinary secrets, forbidden to all but the few who belong inside.
Cheyenne Mountain Complex, USA. Imagine driving through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Majestic peaks surround you, snow-capped in winter, bathed in golden light in summer. You feel a sense of awe, maybe even adventure, but somewhere deep inside these mountains lies a place so secret, so fortified, that it could practically be the fortress of a superhero or a villain. Welcome to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a top-secret U.S. military installation and one of the most forbidden places on the planet. Picture yourself approaching the mountain. The trees thin, the road winds sharply, and suddenly you see massive gates with warning signs. Authorized personnel only. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Armed guards watch everything. Motion detectors sweep the area. Cameras track every inch. You can feel the tension in the air, the weight of secrecy. You start to understand that this isn't just a base. It's a hidden city inside a mountain, built to withstand almost anything. So, why is Cheyenne Mountain off limits? Well, this is where some of the most critical operations of the U.S. military are, or were, managed. Originally built during the Cold War, the complex was designed to track missile launches, coordinate defense systems, and monitor potential threats from around the world. The facility is buried hundreds of feet underground, surrounded by granite rock, designed to survive nuclear blasts, earthquakes, and just about anything else you could imagine. It's essentially a fortress inside a mountain, controlling information that could decide the fate of nations. Now, imagine what it's like inside. The moment you step through the reinforced doors, you enter a city carved into rock. There are command centers, living quarters,
offices, cafeterias, and even gyms. People work shifts monitoring satellite feeds, radar signals, and global communications. The technology is cutting edge, the security airtight, and the responsibility overwhelming. This is not your average workplace. It's a hub where mistakes could have catastrophic consequences, and you, as an outsider, are completely forbidden from entering. Here's a bit of history that makes Cheyenne Mountain even more fascinating. Construction began in the 1960s, at the height of Cold War paranoia. The U.S. government wanted a facility that could survive nuclear war and still operate. Engineers carved millions of tons of granite, built blast doors weighing hundreds of tons, and installed systems that could operate autonomously for weeks underground. The idea was simple but extreme. Even if the surface world was obliterated, Cheyenne Mountain would keep going. That's some serious hidden fortress energy. Now imagine trying to visit. You can't. Security is unlike anything in a normal military base. Armed personnel, surveillance cameras, biometric scanners, everything is designed to keep outsiders out. Even getting close can trigger alarms. And it's not just physical danger. There's a legal line you cannot cross. Trespassers face fines, jail time, and possibly federal charges. Essentially, the mountain itself is off limits, and the rules are non-negotiable. Here's a mind-bending detail that makes Cheyenne Mountain even more fascinating. At its peak, Cheyenne Mountain controlled the NORAD, or North American Aerospace Defense Command, operations monitoring threats from outer space to the Earth. It tracked missile launches, satellites, and even unknown aerial objects. The data flowing through this facility could literally decide whether alarms are raised worldwide. And yet, most people outside the military have no clue what goes on there. That's what makes it forbidden. Not just the walls, but the knowledge itself. Picture yourself standing at the foot of the mountain, looking at the guarded entrances. You feel the immensity of the rock, the secrecy of what lies beneath, and the absolute certainty that what happens inside will never be revealed to you. You might imagine buzzing consoles, operators analyzing satellite feeds, or emergency systems springing into action, all while the world above continues obliviously. Cheyenne Mountain is both ordinary and extraordinary, a mountain that hides a heartbeat of national defense. Would you dare to wonder what life is like inside, surrounded by granite, cutting-edge tech, and secrets that could affect the entire planet? Or would you be content imagining it from the safety of the forested slopes, appreciating the sheer scale of secrecy? Cheyenne Mountain Complex is a reminder that some places are forbidden not because they are mystical or dangerous in the traditional sense, but because the information they hold is too powerful, too critical to be exposed. And somehow, that makes it even more intriguing.
Svalbard Global Seed Vault, Norway. Imagine a frozen, stark landscape, miles and miles of snow and ice stretching endlessly under a pale Arctic sky. The wind howls, biting your face, and the temperature could freeze your thoughts before your fingers. Somewhere in that icy wilderness, carved into the permafrost of a mountain, lies one of the most important yet secretive places on Earth, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. At first glance, it doesn't seem dangerous or mysterious like a military base, but don't let appearances fool you. This is a forbidden place, and for very good reasons. Picture yourself trekking across the snowy tundra, the Arctic silence pressing in, and then you spot it. A steel door built into the mountainside, marked with a simple sign, surrounded by cameras, alarms, and security measures.
Beyond this door lies millions of seeds from every corner of the planet, stored for a single purpose: to preserve the world's food supply in case disaster strikes. And here's the kicker: you can't go inside. Not tourists, not scientists without clearance, not even the casual curious explorer. This vault is off limits to almost everyone. So why is it forbidden? Well, think about it. Inside are seeds from virtually every country in the world, including rare and endangered varieties. Some of them are the only surviving examples of certain plants. If someone accidentally contaminated them, stole them, or caused damage, it could have serious consequences for global food security. The security here isn't about hiding secrets or spying on people, it's about protecting life itself. And in a place where one careless mistake could ripple across the planet, access is tightly restricted. Now imagine the scale. Over 1 million seed samples are stored here. Grains, fruits, vegetables, and more, all carefully cataloged, frozen, and protected. The vault is designed to survive almost anything: earthquakes, nuclear disasters, even the melting of the surrounding ice. It's built into solid rock and kept at a consistent frigid temperature, naturally preserved by the permafrost. Engineers and scientists work for years to ensure that this isn't just a warehouse, it's a backup of humanity's survival. Here's something fascinating. Svalbard isn't just storing seeds for fun, it's part of a global insurance policy. Countries send duplicates of their seeds here, so if natural disasters, war, or climate change destroys crops back home, there's a backup. Imagine a world where a single catastrophe wipes out an entire food crop. Without Svalbard, the consequences could be devastating. And yet almost no one will ever set foot inside to see it. It's a place where protection is more important than curiosity. Now, think about trying to visit. The vault is located near Longyearbyen, a small town in Svalbard, but the mountain itself is off limits to the public. You can walk around the outside and snap a photo, but getting through the door? Impossible without special clearance. And even authorized personnel follow strict protocols to ensure the seeds are never contaminated. Imagine being in a place where every single move is about preservation, precision, and safety, knowing that one wrong step could compromise millions of lives worldwide. That's the tension of the vault. Here's something mind-bending. This mountain, buried in Arctic ice, contains seeds that represent thousands of years of human agricultural history. Ancient grains, hybrid plants, and even extinct varieties are frozen, waiting for a future where they might be needed. It's like a time capsule for life itself. And yet the world outside remains oblivious to the incredible scale and importance of what's hidden behind that steel door. That's why it's forbidden. Not because it's secretive in the spy sense, but because the responsibility is too great to allow casual access. Picture standing outside, staring at that icy mountain, imagining the rows and rows of seeds stored safely inside, each one a potential lifeline for humanity. You can feel the cold wind biting, the quiet of the Arctic pressing around you, and a strange sense of awe. This is a place that could literally save the world, and yet almost no one is allowed in. That mix of danger, importance, and restriction makes Svalbard fascinating in a way that few forbidden places are. So would you imagine stepping inside if you could, surrounded by the history of agriculture and the potential future of human survival? Or would you respect the boundary, understanding that some places are forbidden because they protect something far bigger than any individual curiosity? Svalbard Global Seed Vault reminds us that sometimes the most forbidden places aren't about mystery or danger. They're about responsibility, preservation, and survival on a global scale. And somehow, that makes it even more captivating.
Woomera Prohibited Area, Australia. Imagine driving across the vast, flat expanses
of the Australian outback. The horizon stretches endlessly. The red dirt glows in the sun, and the wind kicks up clouds of dust that seem to move like ghosts across the landscape. You might think you're alone, that this is just another remote part of the world. But hidden here is one of the most secretive and forbidden areas on Earth, the Woomera Prohibited Area. Picture yourself approaching the outskirts. Signs appear. Entry forbidden. Violators will be prosecuted. Fences, checkpoints, and surveillance cameras make it clear that curiosity will not be tolerated. You start to feel the tension in the air, like the land itself is warning you to stay away. And for good reason. This is no ordinary desert. It's a massive testing ground for weapons, military technology, and experiments that the public is never meant to see. So, why is it forbidden? Woomera is an enormous military testing zone, stretching over 120,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than some countries. The area has been used since the 1940s for testing missiles, rockets, and advanced aircraft, often in cooperation with allies like the United Kingdom. The sheer scale of the zone means that a single mistake could be deadly. Imagine wandering into a test range just as a missile is launched, or worse, encountering experimental aircraft flying faster than anything you've ever seen. The danger alone makes this place off limits. Now, think about the history. During the Cold War, Woomera was a central site for testing British and Australian weapons, including rockets capable of reaching high altitudes. Over the decades, it became one of the most important military testing zones in the world. Today, the area still serves multiple purposes: weapons testing, defense exercises, and highly classified experiments that no outsider can witness. And all of this happens in the middle of the desert, surrounded by nothing but miles of barren and unforgiving terrain. Imagine what it would be like to enter the area. You'd be met with a combination of natural challenges and human enforcement. The desert itself is harsh: extreme temperatures, scarce water, and rugged terrain. Add armed security, checkpoints, and constant surveillance, and it's clear why access is forbidden. Trespassing isn't just illegal, it's dangerous, potentially fatal. The government doesn't just warn people, it enforces the boundaries strictly. Here's a fascinating detail. Woomera is so vast and secretive that it has its own airspace restrictions. Certain areas of the sky are entirely off-limits to civilian flights. And because of the sheer scale of testing done here, people in nearby towns sometimes report hearing strange sonic booms, seeing unusual lights in the sky, or spotting experimental aircraft moving in ways that defy ordinary physics. The desert becomes almost like a playground for military innovation, invisible to the world, but teeming with secret activity. Now, picture yourself standing on the edge of this forbidden zone. You can see the endless red sands, the heat rising in shimmering waves, and the empty horizon that seems deceptively peaceful. But you know that inside, high-tech experiments and dangerous testing are happening constantly. The tension between the calm landscape and the hidden activity gives Woomera a mysterious and almost eerie aura. You're left imagining what could be happening behind the fences, what innovations are being tested, and what risks are contained there. Here's a mind-bending thought. Woomera isn't just about weapons. It has also been used for space and rocket testing.
In fact, it was a central site for early satellite launches in cooperation with other countries. That means that somewhere in that massive desert, humanity's reach for the stars has been quietly taking shape away from the public eye. And yet, ordinary people are strictly forbidden to witness it. So, would you dare to venture near Woomera, imagining experimental aircraft streaking across the sky, missiles launching into the desert, and secret operations unfolding beneath the sun? Or would you respect the invisible line and stay outside, letting your imagination fill in the incredible activity happening behind the fences? Woomera Prohibited Area reminds us that some forbidden places aren't just about danger. They're about control, secrecy, and human ingenuity hidden in plain sight. And somehow that makes them even more fascinating.
Colonia Dignidad, Chile. Imagine driving through the remote hills of southern Chile. Dense forests all around, streams cutting through the green, and a sense of isolation pressing in from every side. It feels peaceful at first glance, almost like a perfect getaway. But hidden among those hills once lay a place so secretive, so disturbing, that it became infamous worldwide. Colonia Dignidad. And let me warn you, this isn't your typical forbidden zone. The darkness here isn't just about secrecy. It's about what happened behind the fences. Picture yourself approaching the enclave in the 1960s or 70s. Signs might have read something innocent like private colony. But as you get closer, the reality becomes clear. This was a closed, self-sufficient German community in the middle of nowhere. Outsiders were not welcome. Locals barely knew what happened inside, and anyone curious enough to peek could be intimidated or threatened. This was a place where privacy wasn't just a preference, it was enforced, sometimes brutally. So why was it forbidden? Officially, it was a private commune, but in reality, the colony was a cult-like enclave led by a man named Paul Schaefer, a former German teacher and self-proclaimed leader. Schaefer ran the community with strict control over its members, using psychological manipulation, punishment, and fear to enforce obedience. The people living there had almost no freedom, and outsiders, they weren't allowed in, not because of safety hazards, but because the leadership wanted to hide the abuses from the world. Now, imagine living there. Children were raised under strict rules, cut off from the outside world. Adults had limited autonomy. The compound had farms, factories, hospitals, and even schools, but everything served the colony's insular authoritarian structure. Over time, rumors began to leak. Human rights abuses, forced labor, and even collaboration with Chile's military dictatorship. And all of this happened while the compound remained hidden from the outside world, a forbidden zone shrouded in silence and fear. Imagine the tension if you were an outsider back then. You might hear strange rumors, see armed guards patrolling the perimeter, notice vehicles coming and going under secrecy, or catch glimpses of strange buildings tucked into the hillside. You'd feel that prickling sense of danger, not from the natural environment, but from the people inside, determined to protect their secrets at any cost. Some locals claimed that merely asking questions was enough to draw hostility. It was a place where curiosity could put you at serious risk. And here's a disturbing thought.
The colony operated almost like a mini-state. It had its own schools, medical facilities, factories, and even self-governing rules entirely separate from Chilean oversight. The secrecy, the isolation, and the abuses combined to create a place that was completely forbidden not just physically but morally and legally. Anyone entering without permission would encounter suspicion, hostility, and possibly legal danger. It was a fortress of control and oppression disguised as a community. Despite the eventual investigations and prosecutions after the late 1990s, Colonia Dignidad remains in memory as a place where secrets thrived in plain sight. It reminds us that forbidden places are not always about exotic technology or natural danger. They are about control, ideology, and human cruelty. You can imagine the sprawling compound, the hidden bunkers, the fear in the eyes of those inside, and the long shadows of secrecy cast over the Chilean hills. So, would you dare to think about what life was like behind those fences in a community where freedom was restricted and fear was used as a weapon? Or would you be content knowing some mysteries are better left as warnings, as reminders of what secrecy can hide? Colonia Dignidad is a chilling example of a forbidden place whose dangers were human, not mechanical or environmental, and that makes it hauntingly unforgettable.
Vatican Secret Archives, Restricted Sections. Imagine walking through the streets of Vatican City, the sun bouncing off golden domes and marble columns, the hum of tourists and pilgrims filling the air. Everything seems sacred, historical, and open to admiration. But hidden somewhere beneath the glittering architecture lies a place that very few people, scholars included, are allowed to see. The Vatican Secret Archives, specifically its most restricted sections. And when I say restricted, I mean truly off-limits, even to the most well-respected researchers. Picture yourself standing outside a grand, nondescript door. It doesn't scream mystery like a cave or a bunker. To the untrained eye, it's just another archway in a centuries-old building. But this door hides millions of documents spanning over 12 centuries, from royal correspondence to papal decrees, secret treaties, and letters that reveal the inner workings of power, religion, and diplomacy. And the catch? Some of these documents are so sensitive that the Vatican has decided they cannot be accessed by anyone. Not historians, not archivists, not even visiting dignitaries. So, why are parts of the Vatican Secret Archives forbidden? Well, some of the documents contain personal information, politically delicate material, or records of the Church's most confidential decisions. Others might reveal scandals, controversial decisions, or details that could shake centuries of institutional authority. Essentially, access is controlled to protect history, privacy, and the institution itself. Even scholars who gain permission to research there have to follow strict rules: no photography, no copying without permission, and sometimes even restrictions on what they can publish afterward. Now imagine what it would be like to enter. You pass through hallways lined with floor-to-ceiling shelves, countless wooden cabinets, and dust-covered manuscripts.
The air smells faintly of old paper and ink. Researchers are quietly shuffling through documents, making notes in hushed tones. Every step feels heavy, as if the weight of centuries of secrets is pressing down on you. And then you reach the forbidden chambers. Guards or locked doors ensure you can't go further. The sheer knowledge of what lies beyond those gates is tantalizing and maddening. Here's a fascinating detail. The archives aren't just the library. They're a historical time capsule. Letters from kings and emperors, papal bulls, records of trials, secret financial ledgers, and even correspondence about major global events are all stored there. Some documents date back to the early Middle Ages, and yet the most sensitive ones remain unseen, preserved in secrecy. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the idea that someone, somewhere, knows things about history you'll never learn. Now picture yourself trying to get closer without permission. You'd be blocked immediately. The Vatican has security measures in place that are more subtle than armed guards, but just as effective. Authorized access only, strict documentation of entries, and constant monitoring. Even those lucky enough to work there daily are aware that some rooms and documents are untouchable, permanently forbidden to anyone outside a very small circle. That's what makes it fascinating. The danger isn't physical, it's intellectual, moral, and procedural. And of course, secrecy breeds speculation. Over the years, rumors about the archives have swirled endlessly. Some claim hidden texts could reveal ancient prophecies, lost gospels, or even proof of historical cover-ups. Others whisper about secret correspondence between popes and world leaders that could rewrite history. Whether true or exaggerated, the very fact that some parts of the archives remain forbidden fuels curiosity and mystery in a way few other places can. Imagine standing outside the locked door, knowing that behind it are manuscripts you'll never touch. You can almost hear the rustle of pages, the quiet whispers of scholars studying millennia-old secrets, and the echoes of historical decisions that shaped nations. The restricted sections are a reminder that some knowledge is controlled and that secrecy itself can be more captivating than any visible treasure. So, would you dare to imagine what's inside? What truths, lies, and secrets are hidden there? Or would you respect the invisible line that keeps certain knowledge forbidden? The Vatican secret archives show us that forbidden places don't have to be dangerous or remote. They can be intellectual, institutional, and deeply mysterious. And somehow, that makes them even more magnetic to the human imagination.
Snake Island is one of the long forbidden places in the world because of its incredibly dangerous nature. Imagine a small, lush island rising out of the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Brazil. From a distance, it looks like paradise. Green foliage, rocky cliffs, the waves crashing dramatically against the shore. But there's a catch, a terrifying life-or-death catch. This is Ilha de Queimada Grande, famously known as Snake Island, and stepping foot here is literally a gamble with death. Picture yourself in a boat, gliding toward the island. The closer you get, the more you notice the twisted, dense jungle. You can hear the wind in the trees and the waves smashing against rocks, but there's an eerie silence too. No birds, no mammals, nothing moving except the occasional shimmer in the underbrush. And that's when you realize this island is overrun with snakes, thousands of them, all venomous, all territorial, and all extremely dangerous to humans. So why is it forbidden? First, the Brazilian government has strictly prohibited public access. No tourists, no explorers, not even casual researchers, unless they have special permission from the Navy. The reason is obvious. The island is too deadly. The snakes aren't just poisonous, they're aggressive and numerous. One bite could kill a human in less than an hour, and with hundreds or thousands slithering around, there's no way to be safe. Simply landing on the beach could be fatal. Now imagine what it's like on the island. The most famous inhabitant is the golden lancehead pit viper, a snake species found nowhere else on Earth. It's highly venomous, capable of killing a grown human quickly, and extremely well camouflaged in the leaf litter and rocks. Scientists estimate there could be one snake for every square meter in some parts of the island. Walking anywhere is like navigating a living minefield. The island isn't just dangerous, it's a natural fortress, a snake kingdom where humans are intruders. Here is a fascinating fact. The island's isolation is what allowed this deadly ecosystem to evolve. Over thousands of years, the golden lancehead had no natural predators and an abundance of food in the form of migrating birds. Over time, it became the perfect apex predator of this small, rocky island. The snakes adapted to strike quickly and survive harsh conditions, making it almost impossible for humans to coexist with them. And because of this natural danger, access has been forbidden for safety reasons, preserving both humans and snakes. Imagine trying to explore it. You'd need specialized gear, protective clothing, and probably a team of experts just to survive a short visit. Even then, one misstep, a hidden snake under a pile of leaves, or a sudden strike could end everything. That's why the government doesn't just warn people, it actively restricts entry. The law isn't arbitrary, it's literally a matter of life and death. And yet, Snake Island isn't just about danger, it's also a natural laboratory. Biologists who have studied it under controlled conditions have discovered fascinating things about venom evolution, snake behavior, and isolated ecosystems. Every inch of the island is a testament to how life adapts to extreme circumstances and how isolation can lead to some of the most deadly creatures on the planet. Now picture yourself hovering in a helicopter over the cliffs, looking down at the dense jungle below. You can almost sense the snakes moving beneath the leaves, hear the faint rustle of scales, and imagine the intricate web of life that exists there. A perfectly balanced ecosystem where humans simply do not belong. The island is beautiful, dangerous, and completely forbidden, and that combination makes it endlessly fascinating. Here's a mind-bending thought. If humans were allowed to colonize or explore it freely, the ecosystem could collapse in a matter of days. The snakes evolved in isolation, the birds adapted to avoid them, and everything is finely tuned. Intruding could destroy centuries of evolution in minutes.
That's why the forbidden nature of Snake Island isn't just about danger. It's about respecting an ecosystem that's uniquely lethal and perfectly balanced. So, would you dare to imagine setting foot there, knowing that one bite could be fatal? Or would you hover over it from a distance, mesmerized by the deadly beauty of thousands of golden lens heads coexisting in isolation? Snake Island reminds us that some forbidden places aren't guarded by gates, locks, or armed personnel. They're forbidden by nature itself, and the consequences are very real. And somehow, that makes them even more magnetic to the imagination.
Poveglia Island, Italy. Imagine a small, foggy island in the Venetian lagoon. From a distance, it looks like any other quiet, secluded piece of land, overgrown trees, crumbling buildings, and waves lapping gently at the shore. But step closer, and the atmosphere shifts. This is Poveglia Island, a place steeped in history, disease, and legends so dark that it's considered one of the most haunted islands on Earth. And for a very good reason, the public is forbidden to set foot here. Picture yourself on a boat approaching the island. The sky is gray, seagulls circle overhead, and the first thing you notice is the abandoned structures, the remains of quarantine buildings and hospitals, their walls scarred and crumbling. The silence is heavy, almost suffocating, and every step toward the shore feels like stepping into a past soaked in suffering. This island isn't just forbidden for safety, it's forbidden because of the dark energy and history that lingers here. So why is Poveglia off limits? Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Venetian authorities used the island as a quarantine station for plague victims. People who were infected were sent here, left to die in isolation to prevent the spread of disease to Venice. Some estimates suggest tens of thousands perished on the island. Later, it was used as a mental asylum, where patients were reportedly treated cruelly and experiments were conducted. Between disease, suffering, and human cruelty, the island became a repository of death and despair. The Italian government now forbids public access, partly for safety, but partly to preserve what's left and respect the victims. Now imagine walking among the ruins. Broken walls, rusted metal gates, and empty windows that seem to stare at you. The air is damp, filled with the scent of decay and salt from the lagoon. You can almost hear whispers of the past, the cries of plague victims, the screams from the asylum, and the slow passage of time leaving its mark. Even the bravest visitors report an unshakable feeling of unease. It's not just the buildings or the isolation, it's the knowledge that thousands of lives ended here, violently, tragically, and alone. Here's a chilling detail. Legends say the island is haunted. People talk about shadowy figures, sudden chills, strange noises, and inexplicable feelings of being watched. Some claim to see ghostly figures of former patients or plague victims wandering the grounds. And though these are anecdotal stories, the sheer volume of tragedy that occurred here makes it easy to see why the island has earned its reputation as the world's most haunted. Whether or not spirits linger, the history alone is enough to give anyone pause. Imagine trying to explore it. You'd have to sneak past Italian authorities, navigate unstable ruins, and contend with overgrown vegetation concealing hazards like holes, crumbling stairways, and sharp debris. The island isn't just haunted by history, it's physically dangerous.
Combine that with the psychological weight of knowing what happened here, and it's clear why access is forbidden. This isn't a place for casual tourism. It's a place where respect, caution, and fear collide. Now, consider the perspective of the people who once lived and died here. Quarantined victims isolated from family, patients subjected to harsh conditions in the asylum, and workers who lived among the dying. Imagine the mental and emotional toll. Every corner of Poveglia carries remnants of human suffering, and the very ground seems to hold those stories. That's part of the power and the curse of forbidden places. They contain history too heavy to be ignored, yet too dangerous to confront directly. Picture standing on the edge of the crumbling pier, looking back at the ruins silhouetted against the lagoon, the wind whipping through broken windows and the fog rolling in. You feel the chill of history, the weight of thousands of lives lost, and the eerie sense that the past isn't gone. It lingers here. That's why Poveglia is forbidden, not just to protect the living from danger, but to preserve a place haunted by memory, tragedy, and legend. So, would you dare to imagine walking its empty streets, hearing whispers of the past, and feeling the presence of lives long gone? Or would you stay back, letting the history, horror, and mystery remain intact, respecting the boundaries? Poveglia Island reminds us that forbidden places aren't always locked doors or armed guards. They can be haunted, historical, and morally forbidden, and that makes them all the more captivating.
North Brother Island, New York, USA. Imagine looking across the East River in New York City and spotting a small, overgrown island tucked between the Bronx and Rikers Island. From a distance, it might look like just another patch of green amid the urban skyline, a forgotten space in the middle of one of the busiest cities on Earth. But this island, North Brother Island, holds a dark past, and stepping foot on it is strictly forbidden. Picture yourself on a boat approaching the shore. The island is completely overgrown, trees and vines overtaking crumbling buildings, the remnants of a once functional community now slowly swallowed by nature. Silence dominates, broken only by the occasional call of birds or the lapping of water against rusting docks. And that's when it hits you. This isn't just abandoned, it's forbidden, and there's a reason for it. So why can't anyone go there? North Brother Island was originally used as a quarantine station for people with contagious diseases like smallpox and typhoid. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, those who were infected were sent here to isolate them from the city, preventing outbreaks. At its peak, the island housed hundreds of patients, many of whom died there. Because of the lingering contamination, the decayed buildings, and the unstable structures, the island remains off-limits to the public. It's dangerous, both physically and historically. Now imagine walking among the ruins. Empty hospital wards, peeling paint, and rusted beds and overgrown paths create an eerie atmosphere. You can almost hear the footsteps of nurses and doctors long gone, the distant coughs of patients, and the quiet despair that once hung in the air. The decay is so complete that nature has started reclaiming the island. Trees grow through floors, vines wrap around walls, and the only signs of human presence are the crumbling shells of buildings. It's like stepping into a time capsule where history and nature collide, forbidden from human intrusion. Here's a chilling piece of history.
The island also housed Typhoid Mary, one of the most infamous carriers of disease in American history. Mary Mallon was sent to North Brother Island after being found responsible for spreading typhoid fever to dozens of people. She spent years there, isolated, completely cut off from society. Her story alone shows why the island carries an air of dread, a symbol of isolation, fear, and the extremes humans go to control disease. Imagine trying to explore it today. Even if you wanted to, access is impossible. The buildings are structurally unsafe, with floors that could collapse and roofs caving in. Hidden hazards lurk under the thick foliage. Officials don't just forbid public access, they enforce it. Trespassers could face arrest, injury, or worse. The island isn't just abandoned, it's dangerous, both physically and historically, holding memories of illness and suffering that are better left undisturbed. And here is an eerie thought. Despite being surrounded by one of the busiest cities in the world, North Brother Island feels completely isolated. The sounds of the city fade as you approach, replaced by rustling leaves, birds, and the quiet hum of water. Standing there, you feel disconnected from time, imagining patients confined, nurses working tirelessly, and the harsh reality of life and death playing out behind those walls. It's haunting and fascinating at the same time. The island also serves as a reminder of the extreme measures societies take to contain disease. While today we have vaccines and hospitals, in the past, islands like this were a last resort, a literal exile for those deemed a threat to public health. Forbidden places like North Brother Island aren't always locked with gates or patrolled by guards. They can be forbidden because history itself makes them dangerous and sacred. Picture standing on the riverbank, looking at the green mass of the island. You can almost see the decayed remnants of hospitals, feel the weight of the thousands who passed through its gates, and sense the stories left behind. North Brother Island is a place where curiosity meets danger, where history and nature have merged into an untouchable forbidden relic. So would you dare to imagine wandering its overgrown streets, listening to the echoes of the past? Or would you respect the invisible line, letting the island remain a haunting, forbidden memory of human suffering and isolation? North Brother Island reminds us that some forbidden places are hidden in plain sight, surrounded by the everyday, yet completely inaccessible, because some stories, some histories, are too heavy to walk through casually.
Heard Island, Australia. Imagine staring at a map of the world and noticing a tiny, icy speck in the southern Indian Ocean. It's far, remote, and surrounded by miles of turbulent sea. That's Heard Island, one of the most isolated places on Earth. At first glance, it might seem like an adventurous paradise for explorers, but this island is extremely forbidden, and for very good reasons. Picture yourself imagining a journey there. The seas are rough, with waves that can toss even the strongest boats like toys. The wind is relentless, cold and bone-chilling. Snow and ice cover parts of the land even in summer, and volcanic peaks rise abruptly from the ground, some still active. The terrain is treacherous, a mixture of glaciers, jagged cliffs, and unstable volcanic slopes. Simply reaching the island is a monumental challenge, let alone walking across it. So why is it off limits? First, the island is home to pristine wildlife that exists nowhere else. Seals, penguins, seabirds, and unique plant species thrive in complete isolation. Scientists have shown that even minor interference could destroy fragile ecosystems that took centuries to evolve. The island isn't just dangerous for humans, it's incredibly vulnerable ecologically. That's why access is strictly limited by the Australian government. Only a few researchers with special permits are allowed to step onto the ice, and even then, they must follow extremely strict environmental protocols. Now, imagine the island itself. You step onto black volcanic rock, feel the crunch of glacial ice beneath your feet, and watch steam rising from active vents. There's no shelter, no towns, no rescue services. If a storm hits, which it will, there's nowhere to run. The combination of extreme weather, volcanic hazards, and isolation makes Heard Island a place where survival is uncertain. It's the kind of location where Mother Nature reminds you who's in charge. Here's a fascinating detail. The island is home to Big Ben, an active volcano that towers over the land. Its eruptions are unpredictable, and volcanic activity has shaped the island's landscape dramatically. Lava flows, hot vents, and ash fields create hazards that could be fatal for an unprepared explorer. Combine this with the unpredictable Southern Ocean, and you realize why the island is forbidden. It's physically impossible for casual access and dangerous even for experts. Now, imagine trying to explore it. You'd need a highly specialized ship, survival gear for freezing temperatures, and a team trained for extreme conditions. Even with all that preparation, storms can strand you, volcanic eruptions can cut off escape routes, and rough seas can prevent you from ever leaving. This isn't just an island, it's a test of human endurance against nature itself. And that's part of the fascination. It's forbidden not because of secrecy, but because survival is precarious. And yet, it's a natural laboratory. Scientists who study Heard Island are observing ecosystems untouched by humans, watching species thrive without interference. The ice fields, mosses, and isolated animal populations provide invaluable insight into how life adapts to extreme conditions. Every step on the island is a delicate balance. You could destroy centuries of untouched evolution without even trying. That's why most of the world is forbidden to visit. This island is a treasure, not of gold, but of life itself. Picture standing at the shore, watching glaciers calve into the ocean, steam rising from volcanic vents, and penguins waddling along rocky outcrops. You feel the scale of isolation, the danger, and the untouched beauty all at once. The island is harsh, unforgiving, and wild, yet it's alive with unique life forms. It's a place where curiosity meets caution, and where human fascination is tempered by respect for nature's power. Here's a mind-bending thought. You're closer to Antarctica than to any major city. The isolation is absolute, the danger is real, and the ecosystem fragile. The forbidden nature of Heard Island is a reminder that some places aren't hidden by walls or guards. They're forbidden by the raw and untamed power of nature. And that's exactly what makes them irresistible to imagine. So, would you dare to picture yourself navigating volcanic slopes, ice fields and raging storms for a glimpse of untouched wilderness? Or would you respect the boundaries, knowing that some places are best left to nature, wild and untamed? Heard Island reminds us that forbidden places can be dangerous, not because humans want to hide them, but because nature itself demands respect. And that makes them breathtakingly fascinating.
Bannerman Island, USA. Imagine gliding along the Hudson River in New York State on a calm summer afternoon. The water glistens under the sun, boats float lazily by, and the skyline of nearby towns seems peaceful. But then your eyes catch something unusual, an island rising from the river, dotted with crumbling stone buildings, rusting structures, and empty towers that lean at strange angles. This is Bannerman Island, and while it may look like a scene straight out of a storybook, it's forbidden and dangerous for very real reasons. Picture yourself approaching the island. The first thing you notice is the decay. The castle-like arsenal buildings, once grand, are now dilapidated and unstable. Windows are shattered, roofs have caved in, and ivy climbs over walls that have seen better days. The air carries the faint scent of rust and old wood. It's quiet, almost eerily so, except for the occasional call of birds and the whisper of the wind. You get the sense immediately this isn't just an abandoned site, it's a danger zone, and authorities make sure curious visitors don't wander in. So, why is Bannerman Island forbidden? Back in the early 1900s, Francis Bannerman built this island as a military arsenal, storing explosives, munitions, and weapons. Over time, the structures deteriorated, partly due to weather, partly due to several explosions that rocked parts of the island. Today, the ruins are structurally unsafe. Floors can collapse, ceilings can fall, and walls can crumble without warning. Even a casual stroll could result in serious injury. The government restricts access to protect people from these hidden dangers. Now, imagine walking through the ruins, if you dared. Broken staircases lead to rooms with collapsed ceilings. Rusted machinery lies scattered across floors, remnants of an era when the island buzzed with activity and danger. You might spot the remains of ammunition storage bunkers, once filled with weapons that could have caused massive explosions. The island tells a story of human ingenuity and recklessness, a place that combined ambition with danger. And now it sits quietly, forbidding anyone to disturb its precarious peace. Here's a fascinating detail. The island is often shrouded in mist from the river, which gives it an almost mystical, haunted appearance. Photographers and tourists who glimpse it from boats can't help but feel a sense of mystery and suspense. You can imagine sneaking onto the island and feeling the thrill of exploring abandoned castles, secret passageways, and overgrown courtyards. But one wrong step could be disastrous. That's exactly why the island is off limits. Curiosity is tempting, but the risk is very real. And the history adds another layer of intrigue. During its operational years, Bannerman Island was part of the broader story of U.S. military preparation. It stored explosives for both private and government contracts, playing a role in defense logistics. But after decades, storms, fires, and neglect turned it into a dangerous ruin, a ghost of its former purpose. The island story isn't just about weapons. It's about human ambition meeting nature's inevitable reclamation. Now, imagine trying to explore it today. Access is only allowed on limited guided tours to certain stable sections. Wander off the path, and you risk falling through rotten floors, being trapped by unstable walls, or encountering hidden hazards left over from the old arsenal. Even from a distance, the sight of leaning towers and crumbling stonework reminds you this place is not for casual visitors. The island enforces its own boundaries with its dangerous architecture and precarious structures. Here's something to consider. The island represents a fascinating intersection of history, danger, and decay. You can study it from a boat, photograph its castle-like ruins, and imagine the stories of workers and soldiers who once walked its halls. But to step inside is to flirt with danger in a very real and tangible way. It's a place where curiosity is natural, but respect for boundaries is mandatory. Picture yourself standing on a boat, looking at the crumbling walls and leaning towers silhouetted against the sky. You can feel the weight of history, the thrill of danger, and the beauty of decay. Bannerman Island is forbidden not because it's secret, but because it's physically unsafe, a reminder that some abandoned places demand respect. So, would you imagine wandering its overgrown paths, exploring broken bunkers and crumbling staircases? Or would you stay safely on your boat, letting the ruins fuel your imagination from afar? Bannerman Island shows us that some abandoned places aren't guarded by armed forces. They're forbidden by time, decay, and the very structures humans once built. And that makes them strangely captivating and hauntingly beautiful.
Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, Ukraine. Imagine standing on the outskirts of a city that was once bustling with life. Streets filled with laughter, the smell of food cooking, children playing, and people going about their daily routines. Now fast forward to a single moment in history that changed everything. Welcome to Chernobyl, Ukraine, where the exclusion zone surrounds the infamous nuclear disaster site, and most of it is completely forbidden for humans. Picture yourself approaching the zone. The closer you get, the more you notice the silence. No birds chirping, no cars driving by, no people walking the streets. Nature seems unnaturally still. You see abandoned buildings covered in rust and mold, playgrounds frozen in time, and the haunting remnants of daily life left behind in a hurry. The air feels heavy, as if the history of tragedy itself hangs over the place. So why is access restricted? Back in 1986, reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the surrounding area. The disaster created a zone where radiation levels are still dangerous enough to cause serious health risks, including cancer, organ damage, and death. Only limited areas are safe for guided tours, and even then, visitors are closely monitored and must follow strict safety rules. The core areas remain strictly off-limits for safety reasons. Now, imagine walking, or trying to walk, through Pripyat, the abandoned city near the plant. Streets are lined with empty apartments, decayed schools, and grocery stores frozen in time. Toys are scattered on the ground, rusted and broken. A Ferris wheel stands eerily still in the amusement park, a silent monument to a life that vanished in an instant. Every step feels surreal. You're walking among memories, not just buildings. And the knowledge that the land is still poisoned by radiation adds a layer of danger that's almost palpable. Here's a chilling detail.
Even decades later, the environment around Chernobyl is unpredictable. Some areas have radiation hotspots, while others seem relatively safe. But these levels are constantly changing due to weather, wind, and the decay of materials. Scientists carefully monitor the site, yet they still restrict access to the most dangerous zones. That means there are entire cities, forests, and industrial sites that humans simply cannot enter safely, forever frozen in a toxic time capsule. Now imagine the wildlife. Ironically, because humans have been mostly absent for decades, nature is thriving in unexpected ways. Wolves, deer, and wild horses roam freely. Birds nest in abandoned buildings. Forests reclaim streets and playgrounds. It's a strange paradox. A place poisoned by humans has become a sanctuary for life. And yet, the radiation that protects wildlife also keeps humans out. It's forbidden not by walls or guards, but by invisible danger that you can't see, smell, or feel, but that can hurt you deeply. Picture yourself trying to explore the core areas. You'd need specialized suits, constant radiation monitoring, and a team trained for hazardous environments. Even with all that, time spent in high radiation zones is limited, because the longer you stay, the higher your risk. Unlike other forbidden places where curiosity might be harmless, Chernobyl punishes recklessness in real, physical ways. And here's the haunting part. Standing near reactor number 4 or walking the abandoned streets of Pripyat, you realize the human cost. Thousands were evacuated, lives destroyed, and communities uprooted. Buildings are filled with memories, echoes, and warnings. The silence is almost deafening, and the forbidden zones act as a stark reminder that some places are too dangerous to enter, not because they hide secrets, but because they are alive with consequences from human error. Now imagine standing at the edge of a decayed apartment block, looking out at the desolate city. Rust creeps over railings, weeds burst through the concrete, and the Ferris wheel looms like a ghostly sentinel. You feel both awe and fear, knowing that the invisible danger lurking in the air can't be controlled. It's a forbidden place in the most literal sense. Enter, and you risk life itself. So would you dare to imagine walking those abandoned streets, exploring decayed schools, or peering into Reactor 4's shadow? Or would you stay safely outside, letting your mind wander through a frozen world of tragedy and survival? The Chernobyl exclusion zone reminds us that some forbidden places aren't secret. They're forbidden because the risks are invisible, constant, and deadly. And that's what makes them so hauntingly fascinating.
Mount Weather, USA. Imagine a forested mountain in Virginia, seemingly quiet and ordinary. Birds chirp, leaves rustle, and the roads wind gently through dense trees. On the surface, it's just another scenic spot. But buried beneath it lies something most people will never see: Mount Weather, one of the U.S.'s most secretive and important facilities. And let me tell you, this place is completely forbidden to the public. Picture yourself driving past the thick forests, feeling the peace and calm, completely unaware that underground there's a massive complex designed to function as an emergency operations hub. Mount Weather is operated by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it's built to be fully self-sufficient in case of a national disaster like a nuclear attack, natural catastrophe, or other emergencies. Think of it as a giant underground city hidden in plain sight. So why is access restricted? First, security. Mount Weather isn't just a building, it's a fortified command center that could play a crucial role in running the country during extreme crises. Allowing civilians anywhere near it would be a massive security risk. Second, secrecy. The exact details of its layout, operations, and capabilities are classified. Even some government employees aren't allowed full access. Essentially, the facility is off-limits to protect both the people inside and national security. Now, imagine entering the mountain, if you could. You'd descend into a labyrinth of tunnels, offices, and control rooms. Massive communications centers hum with equipment that could coordinate emergency responses across the nation. Sleeping quarters, dining halls, medical facilities, and power plants are all built underground to ensure continuous operation no matter what happens on the surface. It's like a self-contained city built beneath the earth, designed to keep the country running when everything else might be collapsing. Here's a fascinating detail. Mount Weather isn't just a bunker. It has air filtration systems, water treatment, and its own power generation. It's prepared to house thousands of people for extended periods. And the secrecy? It's so intense that even nearby residents don't know the full scale of the complex. People have speculated endlessly about what happens there, imagining secret government meetings, high-level emergency planning, or even shelters for political elites. While some of it is conjecture, the core truth is clear. Mount Weather is highly restricted for a reason. Imagine trying to explore it. You'd need authorization that simply doesn't exist for civilians. Even if you got close, security is tight, and cameras, sensors, and guards ensure no unauthorized access. Unlike other forbidden places that are dangerous due to natural hazards or historical events, Mount Weather is forbidden because of operational risk and secrecy. One misstep could compromise safety and national security. And think about the purpose. Mount Weather was designed during the Cold War when fears of nuclear conflict were at their peak. Its role has evolved, but the core mission remains: to protect continuity of government and critical operations in emergencies. That means planning for scenarios most of us don't even want to think about. The people working there train for situations that could change history, and everything is done behind thick walls, buried under mountains, and far from the public eye. Picture standing on the mountain above it, feeling the forest breeze, and imagining the hidden city beneath your feet. The contrast is eerie. Peaceful nature on the surface, a high-tech, high-security hub underground. It's like a reminder that some forbidden places aren't locked away because they're dangerous to us physically. They're forbidden because what happens inside is critical, secret, and highly sensitive. Now, here's a thought. Mount Weather also fuels the imagination. Movies, books, and conspiracy theories love it because it represents hidden power and unseen preparedness. People wonder who would be saved in a disaster, what decisions are made underground, and what's really going on behind those sealed doors.
And while speculation is endless, the reality is simpler. It's a lifeline for emergency management, and that's why ordinary access is completely prohibited. So, would you dare to imagine descending into the tunnels, witnessing massive operations, and seeing the gears that could keep a nation functioning in disaster? Or would you respect the boundaries, knowing that some places exist not for curiosity, but for protection, planning, and survival? Mount Weather is a forbidden place, hidden in plain sight, reminding us that some secrets are maintained for the safety of everyone, not just for secrecy itself.
Tinian Nuclear Test Sites, Northern Mariana Islands. Imagine a tropical island in the Pacific, palm trees swaying gently in the breeze, the turquoise ocean sparkling under the sun. It looks like paradise, right? But hidden among the beaches and lush forests are remnants of history that are forbidden to most people. The Tinian Nuclear Test Sites. This small island played a pivotal role during World War II, and stepping foot on certain areas is strictly prohibited. Picture yourself walking along a quiet beach. The sand is warm, the waves lap softly at your feet, and you can hear birds calling from the trees. You might feel relaxed, almost lulled into thinking this is just another tropical getaway. But beneath your feet and around the island are old military installations, runways, and storage sites, remnants of a time when this seemingly peaceful island was a center of global tension. It's hard to imagine now, but decades ago, Tinian was a critical base for launching some of the most devastating weapons in history. So why is access restricted? For one, danger. Many of the sites still contain unstable structures, leftover ordnance, and remnants of munitions. Even though the war ended over 70 years ago, decades of exposure to tropical weather have left buildings and storage bunkers in poor condition. Wandering around could put you at serious risk of injury. Secondly, preservation. These sites are historical landmarks, and uncontrolled access could damage artifacts and structures that are irreplaceable. The government restricts entry to protect both people and history. Now, imagine exploring the island, if you could. You'd see abandoned runways stretching into the jungle, rusted vehicles overtaken by foliage, and bunkers that have held secrets for generations. Some of these bunkers were used to store materials related to nuclear research and assembly, meaning they're not just dangerous, they're historically significant. Walking through these areas would feel like stepping back in time, into the tense, high-stakes world of World War II military operations. Here's a chilling detail. Tinian was the launch point for the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Think about that for a second. These beaches and airstrips, now quiet and sun-drenched, were once buzzing with activity, preparation, and secrecy. The forbidden zones today preserve that history, while keeping people safe from deteriorating structures and leftover hazards. It's a delicate balance between remembering the past and preventing accidents. Now, imagine trying to explore it. Even if you manage to land on Tinian, access to the restricted test sites is strictly controlled. You'd need official permission and likely an escort. Imagine walking through rusted bunkers, knowing the weight of history around you, or peering down at overgrown airstrips that once hosted aircraft capable of altering world events. The air is heavy with significance, and every step must be careful, both physically and metaphorically. And here's something fascinating. nature has slowly reclaimed much of Tinian. Jungle vines climb over abandoned buildings, tropical birds nest in ruined bunkers, and wild plants sprout through cracked concrete. The juxtaposition is striking. What was once a hub of war and destruction is now slowly being returned to the natural world. Yet the island is still forbidden, a reminder that some history is too dangerous and precious to be approached casually. Picture yourself standing on an old runway, the ocean stretching to the horizon, imagining the pilots, engineers, and soldiers who walked these paths decades ago. You feel the gravity of decisions made here, the danger they managed daily, and the profound historical significance of the place. Tinian isn't just an island, it's a living monument to the past, carefully preserved and protected, and that's why certain areas remain strictly off-limits. So, would you dare to explore these abandoned test sites, imagining the tension, the danger, and the decisions that shaped history? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting the island tell its story from afar, a frozen witness to war and humanity's most powerful weapons? Tinian nuclear test sites remind us that forbidden places aren't always secret. They can be historical, dangerous, and sacred, preserved to teach, warn, and awe future generations.
Ise Grand Shrine Inner Sanctum, Japan. Imagine walking through a serene forest in Japan. The air is crisp, the scent of cedar and pine fills your lungs, and sunlight filters through the leaves, creating a peaceful, almost sacred atmosphere. Somewhere ahead lies a shrine so important, so revered, that most people will never see its innermost chamber. Welcome to the Ise Grand Shrine, specifically its inner sanctum, a place deeply sacred in Shinto tradition and completely forbidden to the general public. Picture yourself approaching the main entrance. The clean lines of wooden gates, the gentle sway of paper lanterns, and the soft murmur of visitors paying respects. Everything feels calm and ritualistic, but the inner sanctum, the heart of the shrine, is off-limits to anyone except Shinto priests and select officials. No cameras, no tourists, no casual peeks. It's a place of worship, mystery, and centuries of tradition, guarded by both human and spiritual reverence. So why is it forbidden? At the center of the shrine sits the sacred Yata no Kagami, a mirror that represents the sun goddess Amaterasu, the most important deity in Shinto belief. The inner chamber isn't just a room, it's a holy space where the divine is believed to dwell. Allowing ordinary people to enter would not only violate tradition, but it could disrupt centuries of ritual, respect, and spiritual balance. Access is forbidden as a matter of both sacred protocol and cultural preservation. Now, imagine stepping even closer. You can hear the soft rustle of ceremonial robes, the rhythmic steps of priests performing rituals, and the faint chime of bells. The structures are built from pristine cypress, joined without nails, exuding an aura of elegance and tranquility. Every detail, from the architecture to the placement of offerings, is deliberate and sacred. You feel the weight of centuries of devotion, and the forbidden nature of the inner sanctum becomes clear. It's not about secrecy or danger. It's about spiritual significance. Here's an interesting fact. The shrine is rebuilt every 20 years in a ritual called Shikinen Sengu, a tradition that has been going on for over 1,000 years. The rebuilding process itself is part of the sacred preservation, emphasizing impermanence and renewal.
Imagine the effort, the precision, and the reverence that goes into ensuring that this sacred space remains untouched by ordinary life. The inner sanctum, being the spiritual core, is kept strictly private throughout this process, highlighting its importance. Now, picture trying to see inside. Even if you wander through the outer grounds, you'll notice tall wooden fences, carefully maintained gardens, and ceremonial paths. The inner sanctum is hidden behind layers of physical and spiritual boundaries. Tourists can admire the beauty, feel the calm, and experience the culture, but the heart of the shrine, the divine mirror, the sacred altar, the most hallowed chamber, is off-limits to anyone except Shinto priests and select officials. And that's what makes it fascinating. You can feel its presence without ever stepping inside. And here's the spiritual weight. Shinto is all about harmony between humans, nature, and the divine. The inner sanctum embodies that balance. By forbidding public access, the shrine ensures that this harmony is preserved. It's not just a rule, it's a living principle, showing respect for the divine, tradition, and the natural order. The forbidden nature here isn't about curiosity, it's about reverence, discipline, and spiritual continuity. Imagine standing in the serene grounds, watching the meticulous upkeep, the ceremonial practices, and the respect shown by priests and visitors alike. You can sense the invisible boundary, the sacred energy that defines the inner sanctum, and the centuries of history and devotion that make it untouchable. The aura of mystery is not built by walls alone. It's woven into the culture, the rituals, and the sacred purpose of the shrine. So, would you dare to imagine the hidden chamber, the sacred mirror, and the rituals performed in silence? Or would you respect the centuries of tradition, letting the sacred space remain untouchable, yet feeling its power and significance from afar? The Ise Grand Shrine, Inner Sanctum, reminds us that some forbidden places aren't dangerous, they're sacred, guarded by reverence and centuries of cultural and spiritual importance. And that makes them both mysterious and profoundly captivating.
Albanian bunker complexes. Imagine traveling through the rolling hills and rugged mountains of Albania. At first glance, the landscape seems peaceful, dotted with villages, farmland, and winding roads. But then, as your eyes adjust, you notice something unusual. Thousands of small concrete structures dotting the hillsides. They look like mushrooms scattered across the terrain, uniform and eerie. These are the Albanian bunker complexes, remnants of a paranoid era, and most of them are completely off-limits and dangerous. Picture yourself standing among them. Tiny doorways, narrow passageways, and solid concrete walls rise out of the ground. Some are partially buried, some are broken or crumbling. The sheer number is overwhelming. Over 173,000 bunkers were built during the Cold War under Enver Hoxha's regime. Every hill, every coastline, every strategic point seemed to have one. But here's the catch. Most are inaccessible, unstable, and potentially hazardous to explore. Many have collapsed, some are filled with debris, and others are hiding hazards like rusted metal, sharp edges, or even wild animals. So why were these bunkers built? During the Cold War, Albania was extremely isolated and paranoid about potential invasions. The government decided the solution was to bunker the entire country, creating defensive structures everywhere.
Each bunker could house soldiers or serve as storage, and they were designed to protect against chemical, biological, and conventional attacks. Today, they are relics of fear, secrecy, and extreme preparation, an entire country dotted with forbidden spaces. Now, imagine what it would be like to explore one. You step through a narrow doorway, darkness swallowing you immediately. The walls are thick, and the air is stale, smelling of damp concrete and decay. Some bunkers have tunnels connecting them. Others are isolated pods in the hillside. Every step feels risky. Floors might give way, ceilings could crumble, and you never know what you might encounter. Exploring them without guidance is literally dangerous, which is why most remain untouched and forbidden. Here's an eerie detail. Despite decades passing since their construction, these bunkers still dominate the landscape. From a distance, they look like harmless bumps, but up close, they are imposing, almost alien. Some have been repurposed for storage or even art installations, but the majority remain abandoned, frozen in time. It's as if the country itself built a secret labyrinth of concrete guardians that now silently watches over the land, untouchable and forbidden. And think about the psychological weight. These bunkers were symbols of fear, mistrust, and preparation for total war. Walking among them, you can almost feel the paranoia that created them, the sense that danger could come from anywhere and the only solution was to hide underground. The scale is staggering. Imagine hiking through hills and encountering bunker after bunker, each one a reminder of human anxiety and extreme measures. Now, picture trying to explore the larger complexes. Many are structurally unsound, with rusted metal doors, broken floors, and unstable roofs. Some have been partially filled in by landslides, while others are completely overgrown. There are no safety measures, no guides, and no rescue services nearby. It's not just physically forbidden, it's life-threatening. Even experts approach these sites with caution, and the majority are left untouched to preserve both safety and history. Here's the paradox. The bunkers are relics of fear, yet they are fascinating to explore mentally. You imagine soldiers living in cramped concrete rooms, preparing for invasions that may never come. You imagine the echo of footsteps in narrow tunnels, the metallic clang of doors closing, and the oppressive atmosphere of isolation. The forbidden nature of these bunkers makes them both mysterious and a little terrifying. Finally, picture standing on a hilltop, looking down at the scattered bunkers stretching to the horizon. The landscape is beautiful, wild and untouched, yet dotted with these concrete reminders of a fearful past. They are forbidden not just for safety, but because some places are too fragile, too dangerous, and too historically loaded for casual intrusion. The Albanian bunkers are more than just ruins. They are a monument to human paranoia, Cold War history, and the extreme lengths people go to protect themselves. So, would you dare to imagine crawling through narrow tunnels, peering into dark concrete rooms and exploring abandoned Cold War relics? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting your mind wander among these forbidden, eerie, and fascinating monuments from a safe distance? The Albanian bunker complexes remind us that forbidden places aren't always about secrecy. They can be dangerous, unstable, and haunting reminders of the past. And that's what makes them so compelling.
Kawah Ijen Volcano in Indonesia. Imagine standing at the edge of a crater high in East Java, Indonesia. You see a turquoise lake glimmering below, steam rising from cracks in the earth, and the smell of sulfur thick in the air. This is Kawah Ijen, an active volcano famous for its stunning beauty, but it's also a place where nature is dangerous enough to make parts of it completely forbidden. Picture yourself hiking toward the crater rim. The ground shakes subtly beneath your feet. Blue flames sometimes flicker in cracks during the night, sulfur gases igniting spontaneously, and the air is thick with fumes. The colors are surreal. The lake glows turquoise. Rock faces are stained bright yellow from sulfur deposits, and smoke curls up into the sky. It's breathtaking, but also dangerous for anyone wandering into restricted zones. So why are some areas off limits? Kawah Ijen emits toxic sulfur gases, which can burn skin, irritate eyes, and even suffocate humans in concentrated amounts. While miners brave the crater to collect sulfur, they are trained, prepared, and usually equipped with masks and other protective gear. Ordinary visitors don't have that protection, and getting too close can be life-threatening. That's why the Indonesian authorities have established restricted zones around the most dangerous sections of the volcano. Now imagine what it's like inside those forbidden areas. You'd see thick plumes of yellow-green gas curling out of vents, the heat of the volcanic earth rising through the ground, and jagged sulfur formations that are sharp enough to cut skin. The terrain is uneven, slippery, and unstable. It's as if the earth itself is warning you to stay away. Even stepping a few meters too close could mean inhaling enough toxic gas to make you sick, or worse. The danger is invisible, but very real. Here's a fascinating detail. Every day, local sulfur miners climb down into the crater to manually collect sulfur. They work in extreme conditions, carrying heavy loads of solidified sulfur up steep paths while inhaling toxic fumes. Their resilience is incredible, but their presence also shows why tourists are strictly forbidden from entering certain zones. It's not just about danger, it's about protecting lives. Picture yourself approaching the rim at sunrise. The turquoise lake reflects the pink and orange sky, the volcano steam curling upward, and the blue flames flickering in shadows. You can hear the hiss of gases and smell the pungent sulfur, a reminder that nature is beautiful but merciless. The forbidden zones exist where the ground is most unstable, gases are most concentrated, and accidents could happen in an instant. Even experienced guides warn visitors to stay on safe paths. And think about the paradox. The volcano is one of the most famous tourist attractions in Indonesia. People flock to see its beauty, yet the very forces that create that beauty, gases, heat, unstable terrain, make parts of it forbidden and deadly. Nature itself enforces the boundaries. It's not a gate or a sign. It's the raw, unpredictable power of an active volcano. Now imagine trying to explore those restricted areas without guidance. You'd be stepping into a living, breathing natural hazard. The sulfur could irritate your lungs, the ground could shift, and the gases could overwhelm you. Even a small mistake could have severe consequences.
That's why the authorities maintain strict boundaries and limit access to trained personnel and guided tours only. Here's another striking fact. At night, the volcano sometimes displays mystical blue flames caused by sulfur combusting as it emerges from cracks. It's mesmerizing and eerie at the same time, but you can only safely view them from the permitted zones. Nature gives you a spectacular show while keeping the dangerous parts strictly forbidden. And finally, picture yourself standing safely at the edge, looking down at the turquoise lake and rising smoke. You can feel the heat, see the stunning colors, and smell the sulfur, all while understanding why humans are kept at a distance. Kawaijen reminds us that forbidden places are not always about secrecy. They can be forbidden because nature itself makes them too dangerous to enter, and that danger is what makes the view so awe-inspiring. So would you dare to imagine hiking into the forbidden zones, stepping closer to the toxic gases and feeling the full force of the volcano? Or would you respect the boundaries, soaking in the breathtaking sights from safe vantage points? Kawaijen shows that some forbidden places are not defined by locks or signs, but by the raw, untamed power of nature, and that makes them unforgettable, humbling, and fascinating.
Mount Athos, Greece. Imagine a rugged peninsula jutting out into the deep blue Aegean Sea. The slopes are steep, the forests dense, and the coastline jagged. From afar, it looks breathtaking, a natural paradise. But this place is not just scenic, it's forbidden to almost half the population of the planet. Welcome to Mount Athos, Greece, an autonomous monastic state where women are completely prohibited. Picture yourself approaching by boat. The waves lap against the shore, seabirds circle overhead, and tiny monasteries cling to the cliffs. From a distance, it seems peaceful, almost magical. But as you get closer, you realize something important. Entry is highly restricted. Men must obtain a special permit to step foot here, and even then, their access is limited. Women, they cannot set foot on the peninsula at all. Not for a day, not for an hour. Entire genders are simply forbidden. So why such extreme rules? Mount Athos has been a monastic center for over 1,000 years, dedicated to prayer, spiritual contemplation, and a life removed from worldly distractions. The prohibition against women, known as Avaton, is rooted in tradition and religious law. The monks believe that a completely male-only environment allows them to focus fully on their spiritual lives without temptation or distraction. The rule has endured for centuries and is strictly enforced by the Greek government today. Now imagine trying to explore Mount Athos. You could admire the ancient monasteries, towering walls, and Byzantine churches from the sea. But landing on the peninsula is an entirely different matter. Men must register months in advance, providing documentation and reasons for their visit. Even with permission, you can't freely roam. Many areas are restricted to monks or scholars. And for women, it's completely off-limits, no exceptions. You can sail around it, take photos from the water, and appreciate the beauty, but the interior remains a secret, sacred, and forbidden world. Here's a fascinating detail. Mount Athos is home to 20 autonomous monasteries and dozens of smaller hermitages. Inside, monks live lives structured around prayer, labor, and study. Libraries contain priceless manuscripts, icons, and relics. The peninsula functions almost like a small, self-governing state, complete with its own administration, regulations, and police.
And all of this is shrouded in mystery for those who are not permitted entry, which makes the forbidden aspect even more intriguing. Now, picture standing on a boat offshore, looking up at centuries-old monasteries perched precariously on cliffs. You see smoke curling from chimneys, hear the faint toll of bells, and imagine the monks walking silently along stone pathways entirely cut off from the outside world. Women are invisible here by law, a rule so strict that even modern legal systems respect it. The peninsula is frozen in time, a place where tradition trumps modern norms and access is controlled by centuries of religious custom. And here's the cultural weight. The prohibition has deep roots. In medieval times, monasteries feared that women's presence could lead to distractions or disputes over property. Over centuries, this rule became institutionalized and intertwined with the identity of Mount Athos. It's not arbitrary, it's a core part of the peninsula's spiritual and social fabric. Visiting Mount Athos isn't just entering a place, it's stepping into a living, breathing tradition that has survived wars, empires, and modernity. Imagine being allowed on the peninsula. Even men with permits are careful, respectful, and guided. There are rules about clothing, conduct, photography, and movement. The monks take preservation of their sacred space seriously, and centuries of autonomy have reinforced the boundaries. Women, meanwhile, are left entirely outside, observing from afar, imagining a world completely inaccessible. That forbidden nature creates an aura of mystery, intrigue, and reverence. Now consider the paradox. The beauty of the landscape, the architectural marvels, and the spiritual aura are all visible, yet the true heart of Mount Athos remains unseen to most of the world. Forbidden places like this aren't just protected physically, they are protected culturally, spiritually, and socially. The restrictions make the place alluring, but they are rooted in respect and preservation rather than mere secrecy. So, would you dare to imagine the quiet stone corridors, the ancient libraries, and the monks moving in silence through centuries-old monasteries? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting your imagination wander from afar? Mount Athos reminds us that some forbidden places aren't dangerous. They are sacred, governed by tradition, faith, and strict rules, and that makes them mysterious, captivating, and profoundly intriguing.
Lascaux Caves, France. Imagine walking through a dense forest in southwestern France. Sunlight filters through the leaves, birds chirp overhead, and the scent of damp earth fills the air. Somewhere beneath this tranquil landscape lies a hidden treasure that very few people have seen in person. The Lascaux Caves, home to some of the world's most incredible prehistoric paintings, and most of it is completely off-limits to the public. Picture yourself approaching the entrance, or what would have been the entrance. You can imagine the darkness, the narrow passages, and the cool, humid air deep underground. Inside these caves, prehistoric humans, living tens of thousands of years ago, painted vivid images of animals, hunting scenes, and symbolic signs. These paintings are not just art. They are windows into the minds and lives of our ancestors, capturing moments and stories frozen in time. And that's exactly why the caves are forbidden to casual visitors. So why can't you go in? It's simple. Human presence damages the delicate environment. Even the tiniest changes in humidity, temperature, or carbon dioxide levels can accelerate deterioration. The original Lascaux Caves were opened to the public in 1948,
and within a few decades, algae and mold began threatening the paintings. Authorities realized that to preserve these irreplaceable treasures, they had to close the caves completely, allowing only scientists and conservation experts to enter under strict conditions. Now, imagine what it would be like inside. The walls are covered in vivid depictions of horses, bison, deer, and abstract symbols, painted in shades of red, black, and yellow. You'd see the skill and creativity of artists from over 17,000 years ago, perfectly preserved in limestone. Every brushstroke, dot, and line is a piece of human history. Walking through such a place would be like stepping into another world, a world of imagination, ritual, and survival that predates writing, cities, and even farming. Here's an interesting detail. The caves are so fragile that even scientists wear special clothing and take precautions to avoid altering the environment. They monitor temperature, humidity, and air quality constantly. The original Lascaux caves have been compared to time capsules containing knowledge about early human culture, artistic expression, and spirituality. Preserving them is a delicate balancing act, one that requires keeping most people out entirely. Now, picture yourself imagining walking along the narrow tunnels. You'd pass by bison painted with incredible realism, horses in dynamic motion, and abstract shapes that might have had symbolic or ritualistic meaning. Every corner of the cave tells a story, but every step must be measured, every breath controlled, and every visit minimized to protect the paintings. It's forbidden not out of danger to you, but danger to the artwork itself. And here's a fascinating paradox. People are drawn to these caves for their beauty and historical significance, yet the very act of visiting threatens their existence. That's why the French authorities created replicas like Lascaux II, III, and IV, allowing visitors to experience the magic without endangering the originals. You can walk through these reproductions, marvel at the art, and almost feel the presence of ancient humans. But the true caves remain a forbidden sanctuary. Now, picture standing in front of one of these replicas, your imagination filling in the details of the original cave. You can almost hear the whispers of our ancestors, feel the reverence they had for the animals they painted, and understand the effort and skill required to create these masterpieces in complete darkness. Forbidden places like the original Lascaux caves remind us that protection is sometimes more important than access, and that preserving history sometimes means keeping people away. Finally, imagine the sheer fragility of the site. A single misstep, a careless exhale, or a stray light could harm the paintings that have survived tens of thousands of years. That's why the caves are closed, forbidden not for secrecy, but for respect, preservation, and the continuation of human heritage. Standing outside or exploring the replicas, you get a glimpse of human creativity and resilience, yet the true wonder remains just out of reach. A reminder that some forbidden places are forbidden for a reason beyond curiosity. They are treasures too precious to risk, and that makes them timeless, mysterious, and unforgettable.
Imagine stepping into the bustling city of Madurai in southern India. Streets are alive with color. The scent of spices wafts from nearby markets,
and the sounds of temple bells and chants fill the air. Amidst all this energy stands a monumental structure of stone, intricately carved, towering, and radiant with history, the Meenakshi Temple. It's a place where thousands of people come to worship, yet certain chambers deep inside are completely forbidden to the general public, reserved only for priests. Picture yourself walking through the temple's grand entrance. The walls are covered in elaborate carvings of gods, goddesses, and mythical creatures. Sculptures tell stories from centuries-old epics. The air is thick with incense, and the rhythmic chanting of priests creates a sense of awe and reverence. It's beautiful, immersive, and overwhelming. But as you explore, you realize that the true heart of the temple, the inner sanctum, is off limits to ordinary visitors. So why is access restricted? At the center of the temple lies the Garbhagriha, the sanctum sanctorum, where the main deity, goddess Meenakshi, is enshrined. Only trained priests are allowed to enter these sacred chambers to perform rituals, offer prayers, and maintain the sanctity of the temple. The rules aren't arbitrary. They exist to preserve the spiritual purity and tradition of the temple, ensuring that sacred rituals are conducted properly. Now, imagine what it would be like inside the inner sanctum. You'd be surrounded by an atmosphere of devotion, with flickering lamps, the fragrance of flowers, and the soft sounds of bells and chants echoing through the chamber. The deity is adorned with silk, gold, and jewels, reflecting centuries of devotion and care. The walls, floors, and ceilings are sacred space, treated with reverence and ritual cleaning multiple times a day. Stepping into this area as an ordinary visitor would violate centuries of tradition and disrupt the sanctity of the temple. Here's a fascinating detail. The rituals performed inside the inner sanctum are highly complex and follow precise timing, mantras, and procedures. Priests undergo years of training to learn these sacred duties. Each action carries spiritual significance. The forbidden nature of the chambers ensures that only those who are trained, disciplined, and spiritually prepared can participate in these rituals. It's a living, breathing tradition maintained across centuries. Now picture yourself standing just outside the inner sanctum, hearing the distant chanting and feeling the vibrations of devotion. You can see priests moving carefully in ceremonial robes, performing precise rituals, while devotees offer prayers at a respectful distance. The contrast between public areas and the sacred core is striking. While thousands can gather and witness the grandeur of the temple, the true heart remains a private, protected, and spiritual space. And here's another layer. The temple isn't just a religious site. It's also a historical monument. Carvings, murals, and architecture inside the restricted areas are hundreds of years old, preserved with meticulous care.
Allowing unrestricted access could damage delicate artworks or disrupt centuries-old practices. The forbidden status protects both the spiritual essence and the cultural heritage of the temple, making it a sanctuary in every sense of the word. Now, imagine trying to get closer. Even with permission, there are strict rules: shoes off, appropriate attire, and careful conduct. Every step is guided by tradition, and the forbidden chambers remain closed to anyone not qualified. The restriction isn't about secrecy. It's about respect, devotion, and maintaining a space where the divine is believed to reside in full presence. Now picture the paradox. Outside, the temple is vibrant, colorful, and filled with devotees and tourists alike. But inside, it's tranquil, focused, and entirely off-limits to ordinary visitors. This contrast emphasizes the importance of boundaries in sacred spaces. Forbidden places, like the inner sanctum, exist to protect, preserve, and honor, rather than to hide. Finally, imagine standing at the threshold, absorbing the colors, sounds, and spiritual energy from a distance. You can feel the devotion and centuries of tradition even without entering. The Meenakshi Temple inner sanctum reminds us that some forbidden places aren't dangerous. They are sacred. They are protected not only by walls alone, but by ritual, respect, and centuries of spiritual significance, creating a sense of mystery, reverence, and wonder that endures to this day. So would you dare to imagine walking inside the sacred chambers, witnessing rituals up close, and experiencing the heart of devotion? Or would you respect the boundaries, feeling the spiritual energy from afar, knowing some places are too sacred to enter? The Meenakshi Temple inner sanctum shows that forbidden places are not just restricted. They are timeless, revered, and profoundly meaningful, offering a glimpse into devotion and human spirituality that can only be appreciated with respect.
Tayakodashi's Hidden Temples, Japan. Imagine trekking through a dense Japanese forest, the path winding between towering cedar and maple trees. Sunlight filters softly through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the mossy ground. Somewhere in this serene wilderness lie ancient hidden temples of Tayakodashi, mysterious structures that few people have ever seen, and access is strictly limited to a handful of monks. Picture yourself walking along the narrow trail. The air is cool and crisp, filled with the scent of damp earth and cedar. You hear nothing but the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds. Somewhere up ahead, behind layers of forest and careful concealment, a temple sits quietly, almost invisible to the outside world. It's not marked on any map, and it certainly isn't open to tourists. Only dedicated monks, trained in the traditions of the temple, are allowed to enter. So why the secrecy? Tayakadashi's temples have been intentionally hidden for centuries. They were built as places of meditation, spiritual practice, and preservation of sacred knowledge, away from the distractions of the outside world. The rituals performed inside are highly specialized, often involving meditation, chanting, and study of ancient texts. Allowing casual visitors would not only disrupt the atmosphere, but could also jeopardize centuries of tradition and secrecy. Now, imagine trying to picture the interior. You'd see wooden structures built in harmony with the forest, sliding doors, tatami mats, and intricate carvings depicting spiritual stories and symbols. The temples are small, but meticulously maintained, radiating a sense of calm and sacredness. Every corner of the structure, every arrangement of objects has meaning and purpose. These aren't just buildings. They are living spaces of devotion and study. Here is a fascinating detail. Some of these temples have remained largely unchanged for hundreds of years. The monks living and training here adhere to strict rules, not just about who can enter, but also about behavior, ritual, and interaction with the natural surroundings. The temples are designed to blend seamlessly into the landscape, so even if you were nearby, you might not realize you're looking at a centuries-old sacred site. The secrecy isn't just about restriction. It's about preserving both spiritual practice and the sanctity of the location. Now, picture standing outside the hidden temple, listening to faint chants and the soft sound of footsteps on wooden floors. The forest is alive around you, yet there's a palpable sense of stillness inside. The monks are performing rituals that have been passed down through generations, connecting with spiritual energy that outsiders cannot access. The forbidden nature of the temple enhances its aura. What is hidden becomes more mysterious, powerful, and intriguing. And here's another layer. The temples are not just spiritual centers, they are repositories of knowledge. Ancient scrolls, texts, and artifacts are stored and studied only by those authorized. Some of this information might contain esoteric teachings, philosophical insights, or meditation practices that have been safeguarded for centuries. The restricted access ensures that these treasures are protected from misuse, neglect, or accidental loss. Imagine trying to explore further. Even if you were guided close to the temples, you wouldn't be allowed inside. The monks follow strict codes, and outsiders must respect the boundaries. The limited access ensures that the sacred space remains undisturbed, preserved, and meaningful. The hidden temples are a reminder that some forbidden places are not forbidden because they are dangerous. They are forbidden because they are too sacred, too specialized, and too important to allow casual entry. Now picture the paradox. The forest is open, beautiful, and accessible. Yet these temples lie quietly, invisible, and restricted. It's a living example of a hidden world within the visible world, where only those initiated and dedicated can witness and participate. The secrecy of Tayakadashi's temples gives them power, mystique, and enduring significance. Finally, imagine yourself walking away, the forest closing behind you, the temples still hidden from view, their rituals continuing undisturbed. You realize that some forbidden places are forbidden not to exclude, but to protect, preserve, and honor. Tayakadashi's hidden temples show that mystery, tradition, and devotion can make a place forbidden in the most profound and fascinating way. So, would you dare to imagine entering these secluded temples, witnessing rituals preserved for centuries, and stepping into a hidden spiritual world? Or would you respect the boundaries, feeling the power and mystery from afar, knowing that some places are too sacred to be seen casually? Tayakadashi's hidden temples remind us that forbidden places are more than just barriers. They are vessels of tradition, spirituality, and timeless mystery, preserved for those who are ready to understand them fully.
Holy of Holies, Jerusalem. Imagine standing on the sun-baked stones of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a place layered with history, spirituality, and centuries of reverence. The city hums around you, market stalls, pilgrims, and the distant call to prayer, but beneath it all lies a location so sacred, so charged with religious significance, that most people can only dream of entering it. This is the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctuary of the ancient Jewish temple, where non-Jews are strictly prohibited from entry. Picture yourself approaching the area as a visitor. You can see towering walls, guards, and pathways thronged with people paying respects, but you also feel a palpable boundary, not physical alone, but spiritual and historical. The Holy of Holies was the most sacred place in Judaism, a space believed to be the earthly dwelling of God's presence. Only the high priest could enter, and even then, only once a year during Yom Kippur. For everyone else, it was strictly forbidden. So why such extreme restrictions? The holiness of the site is unmatched. It was a place of absolute reverence, where the divine was believed to dwell. Entering unprepared, unworthy, or outside the prescribed rituals was considered blasphemous and dangerous, spiritually speaking. Today, the site no longer houses the original temple, but its religious, cultural, and historical significance keeps access highly restricted. Only certain groups, mainly Jews with religious authority, can approach or enter in specific contexts. Non-Jews are completely barred, respecting a tradition that spans thousands of years. Now imagine trying to envision the interior. The original Holy of Holies contained the Ark of the Covenant, a golden chest holding the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. It was an enclosed space, small yet unimaginably powerful in significance. The high priest would enter with incense, ritual garments, and exact prayers, performing duties that maintained spiritual balance for the entire nation. The energy, reverence, and ritual surrounding the place were overwhelming. Just imagining standing there centuries ago would be humbling and awe-inspiring. Here's a fascinating detail.
The area surrounding the Holy of Holies, known as the Temple Mount, is still one of the most sensitive religious sites in the world. Access is controlled, monitored, and regulated carefully to prevent conflict. Even today, guards enforce strict rules, separating religious groups and controlling who may step where. The forbidden status is not about secrecy, it's about protection, respect, and maintaining centuries of tradition. Now, picture standing outside the area, looking up at the ancient stones. You feel the weight of history pressing down. The prayers whispered here, the sacrifices offered, the hopes and fears of generations. You realize the forbidden nature of the Holy of Holies creates a sense of mystery, reverence, and awe. It's a reminder that some places are sacred not just physically, but spiritually, and the rules surrounding them are there to preserve their power and meaning. And here's another layer. The restrictions are as much about cultural preservation as religious observance. The site has been the center of conflict, worship, and pilgrimage for millennia. Allowing unrestricted access could lead to desecration, accidents, or political tension. The forbidden status is a way of maintaining balance in a space so charged with religious, historical, and social significance. Now imagine trying to approach it without permission. Even being nearby requires awareness of complex protocols, prayer schedules, and security measures. You feel the intensity of centuries of devotion and the lingering presence of sacred rituals. The forbidden aspect amplifies the mystique, making the place not just important, but almost untouchable and transcendent in its significance. And here's another layer. The restrictions are as much about cultural preservation as religious observance. The site has been the center of conflict, worship, and pilgrimage for millennia. Allowing unrestricted access could lead to desecration, accidents, or political tension. The forbidden status is a way of maintaining balance in a space so charged with religious, historical, and social significance. Now, imagine trying to approach it without permission. Even being nearby requires awareness of complex protocols, prayer schedules, and security measures. You feel the intensity of centuries of devotion and the lingering presence of sacred rituals. The forbidden aspect amplifies the mystique, making the place not just important, but almost untouchable and transcendent in its significance. Finally, imagine standing nearby, imagining the rituals, the high priest's presence, and the divine connection believed to exist within those walls. You may not enter, but you can feel the awe, the history, and the sacred energy. The Holy of Holies reminds us that forbidden places can hold power, mystery, and sacred significance that transcend time, inviting awe without entry.
Ayers Rock, Uluru Sacred Sites, Australia. Imagine standing in the heart of Australia's red centre. The sun beats down on vast stretches of red sand, the horizon shimmering with heat, and suddenly, there it is, Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, rising dramatically from the flat desert like a giant red monolith. It's breathtaking, awe-inspiring, and iconic, but hidden within its massive form are sacred sites that are completely off-limits, protected by Aboriginal law. Picture yourself walking around the base of Uluru. You see caves, crevices, and rock formations, each with unique shapes and natural patterns. To the casual eye, it's a beautiful desert landscape. But for the Anangu people, the traditional owners of the land, these caves and sites are sacred spaces,
tied to creation stories, ancestral beings, and spiritual rituals. Access is restricted to protect the sanctity of these areas, meaning that even eager explorers cannot enter some parts of the rock. So why are these caves forbidden? Uluru is a living cultural landscape. The Anangu have lived in this area for tens of thousands of years, and their traditions, stories, and spiritual beliefs are deeply embedded in the rock. Certain caves are considered sacred ceremonial sites, where men and women of the community conduct rituals that outsiders are not allowed to witness. Entering without permission would be considered a serious violation, not just of law, but of cultural respect. Now imagine what it would be like inside one of these sacred caves. You'd see rock walls painted with ancient ochre symbols and handprints, some dating back thousands of years. Every mark tells a story, a teaching, or a memory of ancestral beings. There may be tools, artifacts, or ceremonial objects arranged carefully according to tradition. It's not just a cave, it's a living museum of culture and spirituality, forbidden because its power is both sacred and fragile. Here's a fascinating detail. Uluru has been a site of spiritual significance for over 30,000 years. The Anangu people believe that their ancestors created the landscape during the dream time, a period when the world was being shaped and the laws of nature and culture were established. Certain sites on and around the rock are directly linked to these ancestral beings, and their sanctity is maintained through restricted access. Even modern tourism regulations respect these rules, marking areas as off-limits and educating visitors about why some places should never be climbed or entered. Now, picture walking along the permitted paths. The rock towers above you, glowing orange at sunrise, deep red in the heat of midday, and purple at sunset. You can feel the heat radiating from its massive surface, the wind carrying the scent of desert flora, and the energy of a landscape revered for millennia. While some paths are open for exploration, the restricted caves remain invisible, guarding their stories, rituals, and sacredness from outsiders. The forbidden aspect makes them mysterious, powerful, and captivating. And here's another layer. The restrictions are not just about religion, they're about cultural preservation. Uluru has been visited by millions over the decades, and unrestricted access could damage delicate rock formations, ancient rock art, and ceremonial sites. By enforcing forbidden zones, the Anangu people ensure that their heritage, sacred knowledge, and spiritual traditions remain intact for future generations. It's a form of protection that blends culture, law, and spirituality. Imagine trying to explore these areas without permission. You would encounter physical barriers, warning signs, and cultural enforcement. But beyond that, you would be violating centuries of belief and tradition, stepping into a space that is meant to remain private and revered. The forbidden nature of these caves amplifies the sense of respect, mystery, and sacredness that surrounds Uluru. And consider the paradox. Uluru is globally famous, photographed and admired by millions, yet much of it remains completely hidden. Visitors can marvel at its grandeur, walk its base, and even glimpse some rock art, but the true heart of Uluru, its sacred caves, is protected and off-limits. Forbidden places like these remind us that access is not always the goal. Reverence and preservation are sometimes far more important. Finally, picture standing near the base as the sun sets, the rock glowing in fiery hues, knowing that beneath its surface, sacred caves hold rituals, stories, and history that are untouchable. You may never enter, but you can feel the power, respect, and living spirituality that make the sites forbidden. Uluru reminds us that some forbidden places are forbidden not for danger,
secrecy, or intrigue, but because they are sacred, culturally significant, and eternally protected. So, would you dare to imagine stepping inside these sacred caves, witnessing millennia-old traditions and touching the spiritual essence of the Dreamtime? Or would you respect the boundaries, appreciating the power and mystery from afar? Uluru's forbidden sites teach us that some places are too precious to be entered casually, and that respect, reverence, and cultural understanding can make forbidden spaces even more extraordinary and unforgettable.
Lake Natron, Tanzania. Imagine flying over northern Tanzania, the sun blazing overhead, and suddenly spotting a lake that seems almost otherworldly. Its surface glows in shades of bright red, orange, and deep pink, stretching across the flat landscape like a liquid fire. This is Lake Natron, a place so strikingly beautiful, yet so dangerous that certain areas are completely off limits to humans. Picture yourself approaching the lake's edge. The air is hot, the scent of minerals and alkaline salts heavy, and the landscape around you almost alien. Lake Natron isn't just a lake. It's a caustic, alkaline body of water with a pH so high that it can burn the skin and eyes of humans and animals. You'd need protective gear just to wade in. And even then, caution is mandatory. It's no wonder that authorities have designated restricted zones to protect both people and the unique ecosystem. So, why is Lake Natron forbidden in parts? Beyond the danger to humans, the lake is a critical breeding ground for flamingos, particularly the lesser flamingo. Every year, thousands of these birds flock to the lake, nesting on its alkaline shores. Any disturbance, foot traffic, boats, or noise could jeopardize their delicate breeding cycles. Authorities maintain protected zones to ensure that these birds can breed safely, preserving one of nature's most spectacular wildlife events. Now, imagine trying to walk along the shore. The ground is hard, crusty, and encrusted with salt. The water itself can saponify human skin, making it painful and dangerous to touch. And yet the surface is home to a surreal sight. Thousands of flamingos, their pink feathers glowing against the red and orange waters. They dance, preen, and nest in large, tightly packed colonies, creating a scene so vivid it looks almost like a painting. You can admire it from a distance, but stepping too close could harm both yourself and the wildlife. Here's a fascinating detail. The colors of Lake Natron are caused by microorganisms and high salinity, creating red and orange hues that intensify during dry seasons. The alkalinity of the water, which comes from sodium carbonate and other minerals, preserves some animals that die in the lake, turning them into eerily natural statues. It's a combination of beauty and danger that makes the lake uniquely mesmerizing and forbidden in certain zones. Now, picture standing at a safe distance, watching the flamingos stretch their wings and dip their beaks into the water. The reflections on the lake make it appear even more otherworldly, with the red and orange tones mirrored perfectly. You can hear the soft calls of the birds and the occasional splash, but the forbidden areas keep you from disrupting the rhythm of life here. It's a lesson in how nature creates boundaries for a reason, both for safety and for preservation. And here's another layer. Lake Natron is not just visually stunning, it's ecologically essential. The lake supports unique algae, crustaceans, and insects that the flamingos feed on.
Disturbing the ecosystem could trigger a chain reaction that affects hundreds of species. The restricted zones exist not only for human safety, but also to maintain a delicate balance in a harsh and unforgiving environment. Imagine trying to explore further without permission. You'd risk chemical burns, injuries, or accidentally harming nesting birds. The lake's surface is deceptive. What looks like solid ground could be dangerously soft or caustic beneath. The forbidden status enforces respect, ensuring that this extraordinary ecosystem remains intact for both wildlife and future visitors. Now, consider the paradox. The lake is one of the most photogenic, Instagram-worthy landscapes on Earth, yet its beauty comes with inherent danger. The forbidden zones are not just a precaution. They are a reminder of the raw power of nature, where humans must tread lightly or not at all. Lake Natron's mystique comes from this delicate balance, stunning, deadly, and protected. Finally, picture yourself leaving the lake. The fiery hues fading into the horizon and the flamingos still nesting peacefully, untouched by human hands. You realize that some forbidden places are forbidden not for mystery or secrecy, but for life itself, both human and animal. Lake Natron teaches us that nature can be simultaneously beautiful, deadly, and sacred, and that respecting its boundaries allows the magic to continue. So, would you dare to imagine stepping onto the caustic shores, feeling the alkaline water burn your skin and disturbing the delicate flamingo colonies? Or would you watch from afar, appreciating the incredible, almost alien beauty safely and respectfully? Lake Natron shows us that forbidden places are sometimes the ones that teach the greatest lessons about respect, preservation, and awe. Kumano-Kodo Sacred Pathways, Japan. Imagine walking through misty mountains in Japan, where ancient cedar trees tower overhead and the air smells faintly of moss and earth. You hear the soft gurgle of streams and the occasional call of a bird, and suddenly a narrow stone path winds into the forest, leading deeper into a world that has been traveled for centuries. This is the Kumano-Kodo, a network of sacred pilgrimage routes in Japan, where some inner areas are strictly reserved for pilgrims, forbidden to casual visitors. Picture yourself stepping onto one of these ancient pathways. The trail is lined with moss-covered stones, and tiny shrines peek from the undergrowth. You feel a sense of calm, of being part of a journey that countless others have walked before. Yet, as you move deeper, certain paths and inner sanctums are off-limits unless you're a pilgrim following the proper rituals. These areas are not forbidden because they are dangerous. They are forbidden because they are sacred, spiritual, and meant to be approached with reverence. So why are access restrictions in place? The Kumano-Kodo routes lead to grand shrines like Kumano Hangu Taisha, Kumano Nachi Taisha, and Kumano Hayatamo Taisha. Along the way, pilgrims perform rituals, chant prayers, and reflect on their spiritual journey. Inner areas are considered highly sacred, and entering them without proper intention or preparation would disrupt centuries-old spiritual practices. Only those undertaking the pilgrimage in a dedicated, ritualistic manner may traverse these spaces. Now, imagine what it's like inside the inner sanctums. The shrines are modest yet striking, often surrounded by ancient forests and protected by gates or stone markers. Inside, the air is filled with incense, and the quiet hum of ritual. Every step, every gesture, and every prayer is meaningful, connecting pilgrims with ancestors, deities, and the spiritual essence of the land. Ordinary visitors are not allowed here because these spaces are living centers of devotion. Here's a fascinating detail. The Kumano-Kodo pilgrimage routes have been in use for over 1,000 years, linking people to nature, faith, and community. The journey is as important as the destination, and the inner sacred areas serve as spiritual checkpoints where pilgrims reflect, purify themselves, and pay respects. By restricting access, these sacred zones maintain the authenticity and integrity of the pilgrimage experience, ensuring that tradition is respected. Now, picture yourself walking along a permitted section of the trail. You see red torii gates, stone statues, and centuries-old lanterns lining the path. You can feel the quiet rhythm of footsteps and the faint scent of incense. And yet, as you glance toward a gated inner area, you realize there's a whole world just beyond your reach. Rituals unfolding, prayers whispered, and spiritual energy concentrated in a way you can't touch. The forbidden aspect makes the Kumano-Kodo mysterious and deeply evocative. And here's another layer. The restricted zones also serve to protect the natural environment. The trails pass through fragile forests, steep mountain paths, and sacred rivers. Limiting access ensures that both the spiritual practices and the surrounding ecosystem remain intact. In this way, the forbidden areas preserve both culture and nature, a dual protection that has lasted for centuries. Now imagine trying to explore further without being a pilgrim. You'd find gates, markers, and guidance keeping you away, reminding you that some spaces are not meant for casual curiosity. The rules are not arbitrary. They enforce respect for sacredness, history, and spiritual practice. Forbidden places like these show that reverence sometimes means staying outside, observing, and reflecting, rather than entering fully. Now consider the paradox. The Kumano-Kodo is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting travelers from around the world, yet its true spiritual heart remains partially inaccessible. You can hike much of it, admire its beauty, and feel connected to history, but certain inner zones are reserved only for pilgrims walking with devotion and purpose. The forbidden nature enhances the allure. It's not a restriction against curiosity, but a call to respect. And finally, picture yourself finishing a section of the trail at sunset, the forest glowing in warm tones, birds settling in the trees, and the distant hum of a shrine bell echoing through the valleys. You feel awe, reverence, and the quiet satisfaction of participating in something ancient, even if only from the edge. Kumano-Kodo reminds us that forbidden spaces can deepen mystery, enrich spirituality, and connect us to traditions far older than ourselves, even if we never enter them fully. So, would you dare to step into the restricted inner areas, following centuries of ritual? Or would you respect the boundaries, walking the outer paths and imagining the sacred energy beyond? Kumano-Kodo shows us that forbidden spaces can deepen mystery, enrich spirituality, and connect us to traditions far older than ourselves, even if we never enter them fully.
Forbidden City, Inner Chambers, China. Imagine stepping into the heart of Beijing, where the city hums with modern life, yet hidden behind towering red walls lies a world frozen in time. This is the Forbidden City, the sprawling imperial palace that served as the residence of Chinese emperors for almost 500 years.
Thousands of tourists walk its courtyards and halls every day, but there are inner chambers that remain completely off-limits, forbidden to the public, and shrouded in mystery. Picture yourself approaching the massive gates. The walls rise like red cliffs, adorned with golden rooftops that gleam in the sunlight. You pass through a series of courtyards, each more ornate than the last, with intricate carvings, painted beams, and stone lions standing guard. You can sense the history, the grandeur, and the echoes of emperors' footsteps, but some areas are strictly restricted, reserved for palace officials, or preserved as private spaces of the emperor. So why are these inner chambers forbidden? The Forbidden City was not just a residence, it was a political, administrative, and spiritual hub. The emperor lived in seclusion in certain sections, conducting rituals, private meetings, and personal affairs. Allowing unrestricted access would disrupt centuries of architecture, delicate artifacts, and the historical integrity of these private spaces. Some chambers also contain treasures, ceremonial objects, and ancient furniture that are too fragile for public exposure. Now imagine walking through the restricted halls in your mind. The air would be cool and still, carrying the faint scent of lacquered wood and incense. Walls are decorated with golden motifs, dragons and phoenixes, symbols of imperial authority. You can almost hear the whispers of concubines, officials, and the emperor himself moving quietly through these rooms, performing rituals, reading ancient texts, or preparing decrees. It's an intimate world frozen in time, meant only for those permitted to enter. Here's a fascinating detail. The Forbidden City's design itself enforces secrecy. Inner chambers are located deep within the palace, accessible only through a labyrinth of courtyards, gates, and corridors. Guards historically controlled access, ensuring that only those with permission could pass. Today, the inner chambers remain closed to most visitors, preserving the sense of mystery, privacy, and imperial authority. Now picture standing at the threshold of one of these chambers. You can see the polished floors, gilded decorations, and delicate screens, but you cannot enter. You sense the centuries of stories and decisions made here, political plots, ceremonial rites, and personal moments of emperors who shaped history. Forbidden areas like this create an aura of intrigue and respect, showing that some places are not off-limits because of danger, but because they are too precious and significant to be disturbed. And here's another layer. The restricted inner chambers also protect fragile historical artifacts. Ancient scrolls, ceramics, tapestries, and furniture have survived hundreds of years, but even exposure to light, humidity, or human presence could accelerate deterioration. By keeping visitors out, these sections ensure that the treasures and the history they embody are preserved for future generations. Imagine trying to explore further without permission. Guards, signage, and cultural regulations would stop you, emphasizing that access is not a right, but a privilege. The restriction enhances the allure, inviting curiosity while reminding visitors that respect and preservation come before curiosity. Forbidden places like these allow history to exist almost untouched, a living museum of imperial life, mysteries, and traditions. Now consider the paradox. The Forbidden City is one of the most visited cultural sites in the world. Yet its true heart, the private chambers of emperors, remains inaccessible. You can wander the courtyards, admire the architecture, and imagine life in the palace, but certain rooms are eternally closed to outsiders. This forbidden aspect creates a sense of wonder, reverence, and historical depth that no tour guide or photograph could fully convey. Finally, picture yourself leaving the palace as the sun sets behind the golden rooftops, the shadows stretching across the vast courtyards. You've glimpsed beauty, history, and the grandeur of imperial China, but some spaces remain hidden, preserving their secrets and significance. The Forbidden City's inner chambers remind us that some forbidden places exist to protect culture, history, and the sanctity of personal and sacred spaces, teaching respect, awe, and patience. So, would you dare to imagine stepping into the emperor's private chambers, witnessing the life and rituals of imperial power? Or would you respect the boundaries, feeling the weight of history and privilege from afar? The Forbidden City shows that forbidden places aren't just barriers, they are vessels of history, secrecy, and timeless human stories, preserved behind walls for those willing to appreciate them with reverence.
Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. Imagine stepping into a landscape so alien, so harsh, that it almost feels like you've landed on another planet. You're in northern Ethiopia, and all around you stretches the Danakil Depression, a vast expanse of salt flats, bubbling lava, and acid pools. The air shimmers with heat, the ground is cracked and multicolored, and a pungent sulfuric smell fills your nose. It's breathtaking, but highly dangerous and tightly regulated, making much of it forbidden to casual explorers. Picture yourself approaching the edge of a bubbling acid pool. The water glows bright turquoise, surrounded by layers of orange and yellow mineral deposits. Steam rises, carrying toxic gases, and the ground beneath your feet is uneven and unstable. You realize immediately why authorities restrict access. This is not just a beautiful landscape, it's extremely hazardous. A single misstep could lead to serious injury or even death. So why is the Danakil Depression forbidden in certain areas? Beyond the immediate danger, the region is ecologically and geologically unique. It's one of the hottest places on Earth, one of the lowest points on the planet, and a site of ongoing volcanic activity. Allowing unrestricted access could disturb fragile mineral formations, disrupt local ecosystems, or endanger travelers who underestimate the harsh conditions. Access is tightly regulated, ensuring both safety and preservation. Now imagine trying to navigate the depression. You'd see vast salt flats stretching endlessly like frozen waves of white and pink. In some places, salt deposits have hardened into jagged shapes that glint in the sunlight. Hydrothermal vents release clouds of gas, and small pools of acid water bubble like miniature volcanoes. The terrain is almost surreal, beautiful, alien, and deadly at the same time. Restricted areas keep visitors from wandering into zones where nature's power is immediate and unforgiving. Here's a fascinating detail. The Danakil Depression is also home to the Afar people who have lived here for centuries, mining salt and navigating this extreme environment with incredible skill. Some forbidden zones protect their settlements and traditional practices, ensuring that both human and natural heritage remain undisturbed. The regulations are not just about danger, they are also about respecting culture and survival in one of the harshest places on Earth. Now, picture yourself at sunrise. The landscape glows in shades of red, orange, and yellow, the volcanic peaks catching the first light. Steam rises from the ground, reflecting in shallow pools of water. You can hear distant rumbles from active lava flows and feel the heat radiating from the earth. Even from a safe distance, the energy of the Danakil Depression is palpable. The restricted areas amplify the sense of awe. They are reminders that nature can be wild, untamed, and beyond human control. And here's another layer. The depression is scientifically invaluable. Researchers study its minerals, extreme conditions, and volcanic activity to learn about Earth's history and even analogs for other planets. Restricted zones ensure that delicate formations remain intact for study, so that future generations can continue to learn from this extreme environment. Forbidden places like this protect both life and knowledge. Now imagine trying to explore without guidance. You'd have to contend with toxic gases, extreme heat, unstable ground, and the risk of dehydration or getting lost in a vast, barren landscape. The restrictions are not arbitrary. They are life-saving rules, guiding visitors to stay on designated paths and only venture into dangerous zones with trained experts. Now consider the paradox. The Danakil Depression is one of the most visually stunning and unique places on Earth, yet its most extreme areas remain inaccessible. You can admire the colors, textures, and volcanic energy, but you can't step onto every salt flat, peer into every acid pool, or wander among active lava flows. The forbidden zones are what make the experience simultaneously thrilling and humbling. Finally, picture yourself leaving the depression as the sun sets, painting the landscape in deep reds and purples. You feel a mix of exhalation, awe, and respect for a place that is both beautiful and deadly. The Danakil Depression reminds us that some forbidden places are forbidden not for mystery, secrecy, or greed, but because they are too extreme, fragile, and powerful to be treated casually. So, would you dare to imagine stepping onto the toxic surfaces, feeling the heat and sulfuric fumes, and navigating the alien terrain? Or would you observe from the safe, regulated paths, letting the awe and danger wash over you without risking life or nature? The Danakil Depression shows that forbidden places teach respect, humility, and the extraordinary power of our planet.
Mount Thor, Canada. Imagine standing in the Canadian Arctic, the wind whipping across rugged tundra, and suddenly seeing a mountain that makes your heart skip a beat. This is Mount Thor, located in Owuituk National Park on Baffin Island. Known for having the steepest vertical drop on Earth,
a sheer cliff of over 1,250 meters. It's breathtaking, terrifying, and off-limits to all but the most extreme mountaineers. Picture yourself gazing up at the vertical granite face. The sheer scale is dizzying. You can almost feel the pull of gravity as your eyes trace the cliff from base to peak. Ordinary hikers or tourists wouldn't dare attempt it. The risks are simply too high. Only highly trained climbers, equipped with ropes and harnesses and years of experience, can attempt the ascent. The rest of us are left to admire it from a safe distance, awed by its power and danger. So why is Mount Thor forbidden for most people? Beyond its extreme verticality, the weather in the Arctic can change in an instant. Sudden storms, freezing temperatures, and ice make the cliffs treacherous. Even the most skilled mountaineers must plan meticulously, and many expeditions have ended in tragedy. Restricted access ensures that casual visitors don't put themselves or rescue teams at extreme risk. Now, imagine what it would feel like to climb it. Every movement is calculated, every grip tested. The sheer verticality means there's no margin for error. Climbers ascend with precision, using anchors and ropes to navigate the unforgiving granite. The air is thin, cold, and crisp, and the mental focus required is almost total. The forbidden nature of the mountain is what makes it both legendary and respected worldwide. Here's a fascinating detail. Mount Thor's vertical drop isn't just a few hundred meters. It's a staggering 1,250 meters of pure rock face, more than 3 times the height of the Empire State Building. The mountain is part of the Arctic Cordillera, an ancient range of granite peaks carved by glaciers over millennia. Its cliff is not just steep, it's a near-perfect vertical wall, a natural phenomenon that commands awe and caution. Now, picture standing at the base, looking up. The cliff towers above, shadowed and imposing. Wind howls past, carrying snow and ice particles. You can feel the danger even without climbing. Nature's raw power pressing down, showing that some places are meant to challenge the limits of humans, not casual visitors. The forbidden status is a protective boundary, reminding us that extreme beauty can also be extreme danger. And here's another layer. Mount Thor isn't just about danger. It's a scientific and ecological treasure. The surrounding Arctic tundra supports unique flora and fauna, while the cliffs themselves provide nesting sites for birds adapted to extreme environments. Limiting access helps protect these delicate ecosystems from disturbance by unprepared visitors. Forbidden zones are about preservation as much as safety. Now, imagine trying to scale it without training. Even with ropes, one misstep could result in catastrophic falls. Rescue operations in such remote Arctic regions are extremely difficult, slow, and dangerous. By restricting access, authorities reduce the risk of human tragedy, while ensuring that only those prepared and respectful of nature's power attempt the climb. Now consider the paradox.
Mount Thor is one of the most famous climbing challenges in the world, yet its sheer vertical drop and harsh conditions make it forbidden to almost everyone. The mountain inspires wonder, ambition, and fear all at once. It's a place where nature demands respect, where forbidden status isn't about secrecy, but survival. Finally, picture yourself leaving the area, the wind cutting across the tundra as Mount Thor's cliff recedes into the horizon. You feel awe, exhilaration, and a deep respect for a place that is both beautiful and deadly. Mount Thor reminds us that forbidden places can be both magnificent and merciless, offering lessons in humility, courage, and the raw power of the natural world. So, would you dare to imagine standing on its peak, feeling the drop beneath you, and pushing human limits to the extreme? Or would you admire from afar, feeling the thrill and respect without risking life? Mount Thor teaches us that forbidden places can be both magnificent and merciless, offering lessons in humility, courage, and the raw power of the natural world.
Door to Hell, Turkmenistan. Imagine standing in the middle of the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan, the sun blazing overhead, and suddenly encountering a massive crater that glows like fire from within. This is the Door to Hell, officially known as the Darveksa gas crater, a site that has fascinated and terrified people for decades. It's mesmerizing, otherworldly, and yet forbidden in certain areas because it's unstable and dangerous. Picture yourself approaching the edge. The ground is cracked, dry, and uneven. A heat haze rises from the crater, and you can see flames licking up from deep within. The roar of burning natural gas fills the air, almost like the earth is alive and breathing fire. You want to get closer, to capture the perfect photo, but some zones are restricted, officially marked as unsafe because the terrain could collapse and the heat is intense. The forbidden areas exist to protect visitors from this extreme and unpredictable environment. So why is the Door to Hell forbidden in certain areas? Beyond the obvious danger of fire and gas, the crater itself is unstable. The surrounding ground is soft and shifting, and sudden collapses could send someone plummeting into the flaming abyss. Even scientists approach with caution. Restricted access ensures safety while still allowing people to witness its awe-inspiring power from a secure distance. Now, imagine what it would be like standing at the very edge if you dared. You'd feel the heat on your face, smell the sulfur, and hear the deep, constant roar of gas flames consuming the methane below. The crater is roughly 70 meters wide and 20 meters deep, and the fire has been burning continuously since it was accidentally ignited in 1971 during a Soviet drilling operation. You can almost imagine the Earth itself as a living furnace, reminding you of the raw power beneath the surface. Here's a fascinating detail. The Door to Hell is called that for a reason. Its glowing flames, roaring heat, and molten-like glow make it look like an entrance to another realm.
Yet it's entirely natural, created by a combination of human error and geological conditions. Over the decades, it has become a scientific and tourist phenomenon, but the restricted zones highlight that beauty and danger often coexist. Now, picture standing slightly back from the crater, watching the flames dance against the night sky. The desert is quiet around you, the stars emerging above, but the crater seems alive, almost sentient. You can feel the intensity of the burning gas, the instability of the terrain, and the knowledge that stepping too close could be fatal. The forbidden areas heighten the sense of mystery and respect, showing that some of the most extraordinary natural phenomena are also the most hazardous. And here's another layer. The door to hell isn't just a spectacle, it's a reminder of the power of nature and human error. The crater formed when geologists drilled into a natural gas pocket, causing the ground to collapse. They lit it on fire to prevent the spread of poisonous gas, expecting it to burn out in a few weeks. Decades later, it still burns. Restricted zones keep visitors safe while allowing scientists and local authorities to monitor its ongoing activity. Imagine trying to explore without following the safety rules. You'd face soft, crumbling ground, scorching heat, and the risk of inhaling toxic fumes. The terrain itself is unpredictable. One misstep could lead to a fatal fall into the flames. Authorities enforce forbidden areas to prevent accidents and protect life, emphasizing that danger and fascination often come hand in hand. Now, consider the paradox. The door to hell is one of the most photographed and famous sites in Turkmenistan, yet its closest, most intense zones remain inaccessible. You can admire it, hear it roar, and feel its heat from a safe distance, but the forbidden areas preserve both human safety and the crater's ongoing activity. Its restricted nature amplifies the sense of awe, making the experience unforgettable and humbling. Finally, picture leaving the site at dusk, the flames glowing like molten gold against the darkening desert. You feel exhilaration, fear, and deep respect for a place that is both beautiful and merciless. The door to hell reminds us that some forbidden places exist not out of secrecy, but because they are unpredictable, hazardous, and beyond human control. So, would you dare to approach the edge, feeling the roar of the flames and the unstable ground beneath your feet? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting the fiery spectacle ignite your imagination without risking life? The door to hell teaches us that forbidden places can be mesmerizing, dangerous, and deeply humbling, offering lessons in respect for the raw, untamed power of our planet.
Surtsey Island, Iceland. Imagine looking out across the North Atlantic Ocean and spotting a small island rising from the waves, covered in black volcanic rock and surrounded by crashing surf. This is Surtsey, off the coast of Iceland, a place so unique and fragile that access is restricted exclusively to scientists. You might wonder why anyone would be forbidden from setting foot on an island, but the story of Surtsey makes it clear. Some places are too precious, too delicate, and too rare to allow casual visitors. Picture yourself imagining approaching the shore. The island is small, only a few square kilometers, but every rock, every patch of moss, every crack in the volcanic soil tells a story. Surtsey was formed relatively recently, in 1963, after a volcanic eruption beneath the sea pushed magma above the water, creating new land. It's one of the youngest islands on Earth, and in geological terms, it's still in its infancy. Scientists have treated it like a living laboratory, observing how life colonizes bare rock from scratch. So why is the island forbidden to the public? The ecosystem is extremely fragile. Birds, plants, mosses, and even insects are slowly establishing themselves on volcanic soil that was once lifeless. Any human presence could disrupt these delicate processes, trampling tiny plants, introducing foreign seeds or bacteria, or scaring nesting birds. To ensure that Surtsey remains a pristine natural laboratory, only a handful of scientists are allowed on the island, under strict supervision and protocols. Now, imagine standing on Surtsey in your mind. The wind is fierce, carrying salt spray from the ocean. Volcanic rock crunches underfoot, and the air is filled with the cries of seabirds nesting along the cliffs. Moss and lichens cling stubbornly to the black rock, and perhaps a few pioneering plants begin to take root. Every element of life on this island is precious, studied carefully to understand how ecosystems develop in completely new environments. Here's a fascinating detail. Because Surtsey is protected and human access is limited, scientists can track every stage of ecological succession. They watch as birds bring seeds, mosses spread, and insects colonize the new habitat. It's like watching life invent itself in real time. The island is a unique opportunity to study natural processes untouched by humans, and allowing unrestricted access would destroy that rare chance. Now, picture the paradox. A place as dramatic and awe-inspiring as Surtsey, black volcanic cliffs, waves crashing endlessly, seabirds wheeling overhead, is entirely forbidden to the general public. You can see it from a boat or from the air, but you cannot step onto the rocks, smell the volcanic soil, or observe the pioneering plants firsthand. This restriction is not about danger or mystery. It's about preserving the purity of a new ecosystem for science. And here's another layer. Surtsey is a reminder of how human curiosity and care must coexist. In a world where most landscapes have been altered or touched by humans, this island represents a rare window into pristine ecological development. Scientists use meticulous protocols, wearing clean clothing, disinfecting shoes, and carefully monitoring everything they bring to ensure they don't accidentally interfere with the island's natural progression. Forbidden areas protect both life and knowledge. Imagine trying to explore Surtsey casually. One step could crush an experimental patch of moss or scare a nesting bird, altering the natural experiment that has been ongoing for 60 decades. The island teaches us that some forbidden places are not off-limits because they are secret or dangerous, but because every moment of human intrusion can change the course of history, ecological history in this case. Now, consider standing at a distance, looking at the rugged volcanic cliffs and imagining life slowly emerging from black rock.
You can hear the wind, see the waves, and feel the sense of a planet constantly renewing itself. Forbidden zones like this enhance our appreciation of nature, showing that respecting boundaries can sometimes allow us to witness life's miracles without harming them. Finally, picture leaving. The image of Surtsey etched in your mind as a black volcanic gem rising from the Atlantic, untamed and untouched. You realize that some forbidden places are forbidden to protect life, to preserve discovery, and to remind us that humans are not always meant to intervene. Surtsey shows us that even in a world of access and exploration, there are places so special that observing from afar is the only responsible choice. So, would you dare to step onto the island, risking the fragile ecosystems? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting science reveal the slow miracle of life on volcanic rock? Surtsey teaches us that forbidden places can inspire wonder, humility, and reverence for life's earliest beginnings, even if we never touch them ourselves.
Socotra Island, Yemen. Imagine traveling across the Indian Ocean and spotting a strange, alien-looking island jutting out from the waves. This is Socotra, part of Yemen, a place so unique that its landscapes and ecosystems look like something out of a science fiction movie. Towering dragon's blood trees with umbrella-like canopies, bizarre rock formations, and rare endemic species make Socotra a living treasure. But some reserves are off-limits, with access strictly limited to scientists. Picture yourself walking through the island's interior. You'd see red sap dripping from the dragon's blood trees, their twisted branches reaching skyward like something from another world. Birds and insects found nowhere else on Earth flip through the air. And yet, as magical as it looks, many areas are forbidden to casual visitors. The reason? The ecosystem is extremely fragile. One careless step, a stray seed, or even human presence could disrupt the delicate balance that has evolved here over millions of years. So, why are certain parts restricted? Socotra is home to hundreds of plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth. Many of these habitats are extremely sensitive, and even minimal human activity could harm rare plants, disturb nesting birds, or introduce invasive species. By limiting access to scientists, the island's caretakers ensure that research can happen without risking irreversible ecological damage. Now, imagine exploring the island's more accessible areas. The landscape is otherworldly. Limestone plateaus, caves, and sandy plains stretch to the horizon. You can see goats grazing near unusual shrubs, seabirds nesting along cliffs, and the occasional lizard darting over jagged rock. Even here, visitors are reminded that Socotra is not a playground. It's a delicate laboratory of evolution, carefully preserved through restricted zones. Here's a fascinating detail. Socotra has been described as the most alien-looking place on Earth. Its endemic species, like the dragon's blood tree, bottle trees, and rare reptiles, evolved in isolation for millions of years. Scientists monitor how these species interact with each other and the environment. Any disruption, foot traffic, litter, or non-native species could have cascading effects. The forbidden reserves act as protective cocoons, allowing natural processes to continue undisturbed. Picture standing in a restricted reserve if you could. The air is thick with the scent of resin,
the ground uneven with rocks and roots. You hear the flutter of unseen birds and feel the ancient pulse of an ecosystem untouched by humans. Every plant, every insect, every rock formation tells a story millions of years in the making. Forbidden zones exist to ensure these stories are preserved for science and future generations. And here's another layer. Socotra's restricted areas aren't just about ecology, they also protect the local culture. Indigenous communities have lived on the island for centuries, sustainably interacting with the environment. Limiting access ensures that scientific research does not disrupt traditional ways of life while preserving the island's unique heritage. Forbidden places often carry multiple layers of protection: ecological, cultural, and scientific. Imagine trying to explore without permission. You could unintentionally trample rare plants, scare nesting birds, or leave traces that affect the fragile soil and water balance. Even a small disturbance could ripple across this isolated ecosystem. Restricted zones remind us that some places are too precious for casual curiosity, and that observation without interference is often the most respectful approach. Now, consider the paradox. Socotra is one of the most visually striking and unique islands on Earth, yet its most pristine areas remain inaccessible. You can marvel at its alien landscapes from a distance, photograph its twisted trees, and feel awe at its biodiversity. But stepping into the restricted reserves is not allowed. The forbidden nature enhances the island's mystique, teaching respect, patience, and the value of preservation. Finally, picture yourself leaving the island, waves crashing against its jagged shores, the dragon's blood trees silhouetted against the sunset. You feel awe, reverence, and a quiet humility. Socotra reminds us that some forbidden places exist not to hide secrets, but to protect life, culture, and knowledge. They show that human curiosity is powerful, but sometimes the most meaningful experiences come from observing without touching, learning without disturbing. So, would you dare to step into the restricted reserves, risking the delicate balance of this alien ecosystem? Or would you respect the boundaries, letting the island's beauty and wonder inspire you from afar? Socotra teaches us that forbidden places can be extraordinary classrooms of life, revealing the planet's secrets while reminding us of our responsibility to protect them.